Welcome to the Sturbridge Conservation Commission. The first thing I want to report is that we are in center office building. We are not in the main hall. We're over on the second floor. So if you want to join us, we're in the center office building. In addition to that, although we had tried to, we will not be on channel 191 tonight. Hopefully we'll get that corrected for the next meeting. So if you would like to join us, again, we're in center office building. First of all, we'll have a quorum check. We have, everyone is attending. Dave Barnacle is remote. David?
Present.
Stephen Chittister, present.
Eric Gaspar, present.
Roy Bishop, present.
Ed Goodwin, present. All right. With that, Becky, is there anything you want to say about the system and how it's going to work? Is it? Beck?
About the go-to meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're still using go-to meetings, so we have a hybrid
Okay, I just
hybrid
wanted-
meeting,
yeah.
yeah.
So if you want to come in on GoToMeeting, you can.
Anyone that just arrived, if you could sign in on the sign-in sheet, that would be great, thank you.
So do you want to go to public hearing number 1, Beck? 165 Shepherd Road?
You have a
Local
couple,
bylaw?
you have a couple minutes, it's
Yeah.
6:02. Do you want to do committee updates?
Committee updates, all right. I can start off with CPC. We scheduled a CPC meeting for February 21st, only to find out that it's President's Day, so that we're working on getting another date, and we don't have it. So that's all I can tell you for that. We only have, on our agenda at this time, we only have the cemeteries, the money for the cemeteries is being requested, but nothing else is active that we know of.
What's CPC's deadline for requests?
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
David, anything on trails?
Yeah, there are several things about trails. I wasn't able to make the last meeting, but one of the things everybody should be aware of is the third Saturday of every month, the Trails Committee has a work day. And people have gotten accustomed to that, so that 10 months of the year, they're doing work out on the trails. And they think that masterfully, all of this stuff just sort of comes together. What they need to know is that last Saturday, for example, from 8:30 to roughly noon time, the entire Trails Committee met, and they came up with plans for extending and revising several of the trails, including the addition of many more signs in order to make up for confusion that people might have. And a lot of the trails some of the trails that are shorter in nature and seem to end so that you turn back upon yourself are going to be connected to other trails so that it will be more of a flow-through operation out on the lead mine properties.
All right. Anything with lakes?
No meetings until like.
No meeting with lakes. All right. We are now at 6:05 PM.
Do you want to read the opening statement?
Okay.
I think Roy needs to do.
Oh, my God.
He's closest.
Yeah. Pass that down to the expert.
That's why you sit all the way down there, didn't you? I
The
just,
chair requested it too.
In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area, and/or within the 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetland Bylaws and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to opening the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. These items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any visitors have not legibly signed in yet, please do. Also, if any visitors are recording this meeting, please let us know. Thank you.
Thanks. Public hearings. The first public hearing is for 165 Shepherd Road, local bylaw NOI, construction of a single-family home and associated site work. The applicant is T. Davidson, represented by Lenny Jalbert, Jalbert Engineering. Okay. Lenny, how you doing?
Good evening, Leonard Jalbert from Jalbert Engineering.
Becky, can you put the site plan up on the?
Yes. So we have another revised plan he submitted based off of the comments at the site visit. It hasn't been provided to you because it was just received. Do you want to see that one? I mean, it's a
Two
few.
copies of it right
Oh,
here.
there's a hard copies. I do have it electronically too, so I can't put
If
that
you
up.
look at it electronically, it's only those improvements he requested on site, right?
Yeah.
So they're simple requests. You know.
Easy to make, yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty
Copies.
straightforward, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's much better, easier to see now, right? There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Too big?
No,
Good?
it's just right for me.
I might not need to bring my laptop anymore.
Becky, it's not being transmitted.
Oh, you can't see it through GoToMeeting?
No, ma'am. That's okay, I'll just listen.
Well,
No.
let's see if we can do it, David.
No, I usually make myself I have both computers and make myself the presenter, but let's see. More options. Down to Sturbridge. Share my. Oh boy. I'm already the presenter.
If you click on screen, will that do it?
Where?
Down at the bottom?
At the bottom?
Oh, good job.
There you go.
Got it, Dave?
Got it.
Great.
Do you have to do that every time?
Thanks, Eric.
Probably.
Okay. Now we're cooking.
All right, go for it, Len.
Okay, what is actually taking place here is they're putting in a single-family residential home and a leach field facility and a public, private well on the property. All the work that's taking place on the property basically is the construction of the single-family home and the well leach field with the driveway that's going to be off of Shepherd Road. The house and the leach field are all beyond the 200-foot setback from the supposed perennial vernal pool that is located off of Shepherd Road. What it is that the location of the pool itself was a potential vernal pool, but as per Sturbridge regulations, it's assumed that the pool itself is actually a vernal pool. So what it is we stayed with the setback parameters of the pool itself, of which, looking at it hydraulically, you would only have to put the system 50 feet from the pool itself. If you could prove hydraulically it was 50 feet. If not, the state regulation is 100 feet. That's assuming it's a vernal pool. The town has a regulation stating that the setback would be 200 feet rather than the 100 feet, in that the potential vernal pool is automatically called a vernal pool unless we go through a study to prove otherwise. What we did is we assumed the thing to be a vernal pool without any study and stayed 200 feet for development beyond the pool itself. So you find that right now, the house and the leach field facility will be outside of the 200-foot buffer of the vernal pool. The property in question actually is 5.9 acres, 5.09 acres, of which approximately 2.7 acres is in the front of the property, which is that stone wall that's running right through there, where you can see this stone wall right here. Right there's the vernal pool. What that is that the area from that area right there is actually 2.7 acres, which is this piece in the front, and then the piece in the back here is actually 3.276 acres. So you've got a total area of roughly 5.97 acres of almost 6 acres of property, of which the impact itself on the house and the pool will be roughly 1 acre, and the area for the vernal pool in that area there will be basically not disturbed and not entered upon, where the access off of Shepherd Road is going to have a track pad, which will be beyond 100 feet of the wetland area, and the proposed driveway is going to be coming off of where the, gee, I can't read this, right here, this line right here will be a hay bale line put around here. Going along the property itself, we want to constrict the actual clearing and everything in that area. And what we did is we held with the actually setback line around here at approximately 25 feet from the building itself, all in this area here. And then came right here along the proposed drive, which is actually a cot bath going through there now. And we stayed that in this line here. So we're basically just staying within a very fine area of the site in question, with no real runoff. What we've done is we've taken and put in Caltech chambers over here on this side of the building for the runoff from the building, so there'd be no runoff here for the soil erosion or anything. And then along the roadway itself here, we actually put in a catch area here to take all the runoff from the driveway, so there'll be no runoff going from there to the perennial pool. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Becky, you want to go next?
Sure, yep. So just for the record, we do have proof of a butter notification and legal ad receipt. Lenny's worked on this plan. You've read the detailed agenda, so I'm not going to go through everything on there. He's worked to incorporate the comments throughout the project, worked to, minimize the work within the 200-foot buffer zone there, added the Caltech unit and the driveway infiltration. One comment on the driveway infiltration, I think it's going to be important that we make sure that there's a condition that it would be pitched towards that. So we make sure instead of it running down towards the road, that the grading does show that water will make its way that way. When appropriate, when you're at that point, one thing I would just note in the approval, that with the wetland line, we'd just be approving what's shown on the plan, the 4 specific flags, because the wetland does extend further to the north, not shown on the plan. As Lenny mentioned, the wetland is identified as a potential vernal pool. So the commission does have the ability to limit activities within 200 feet of that potential vernal pool, unless the applicant wants to go through the process to demonstrate that it might not be a potential vernal pool. Sounds like, based off working with the revisions to the plan, that it's their intent to take that into account and work to meet what the commission's looking for. Another comment, I asked Lenny, to include the complete limit of work line. I would just ask that as it wraps around where the septic is in the driveway, we just extend that line down along the driveway because that is within the 200-foot, just to have a clear limit of work line. The one thing that I don't think is necessary is that the whole limit of work line doesn't need to be the erosion control barrier. It just needs to be on the wetland side, so there could be something like construction fencing that's put on that side. That also would allow any, migration of any amphibians in that area out of the area too, without getting them trapped in. As far as the erosion controls shown on the plan, it's just straw wattle. I would recommend at least on the wetland side, and we can, identify that a silt fence, an entrenched silt fence is included with that, just to ensure, that there's no, migration off there, extra protections there. I would recommend too, since, if the commission does allow the work within the 200 feet, that there's some permanent bounds set to demarcate that limit of work line along the vernal pool habitat side of this. And that's consistent, and that's something the commission has done in the past. That can be concrete bounds with signs on posts or boulders. That's typically what's been done before, and that way there's no cumulative impacts in the future there too. And I think that's it. A lot of my initial comments were based on the previous plan, so I think they've done a good job to work to really minimize. Because of the need for the driveway to be within the 200 foot, there's really no way to avoid working in that area. And I think if they show that limit of work line, keeping that tight there, I think that they've done a good job to meet the standards under our wetland bylaw. And just as a reminder, since they're not working within the 100 feet, this is a notice of intent just under our local bylaw.
Stephen, you want to?
Sure. I agree with Becky's comments and appreciate the work that you did, Lenny, to address our concerns. I appreciate that everything's outside of the 100 and that you really kind of minimized what, the amount of work and tree clearing that's inside the 200. So I was on site and we talked about it a little bit. I don't have any further questions. So I'm good.
David?
I too agree that the changes are significant. I would remind the commission, however, that according to the Wetland Protection Act, according to our local bylaw, the 200-foot buffer zone is with prior review for approval. So it isn't automatic that you can just start doing things within that 200-foot buffer zone. But be that as it may, Mr. Jalbert, the vernal pool is treed area. Are any trees coming down within the 200 feet of that vernal pool?
No.
Very good, nice, decisive answer.
Well, there will be some associated with where the driveway goes in.
Okay, what is actually taking place is the proposed driveway that's going in on the lot where we're proposing it is already a driveway through there. So if there's any trees, I think that the only thing would be small shrubs and that'd be brush that would be taken from that area. But outside of that, where it's marked, it's basically cleared right now. If you look at where the areas were between the percolation tests and the observation holes, that area itself had already been cleaned out. So there's going to be no additional cutting in there. The only cutting that would be taking place would be from the house and 25 feet around the house and the leach field itself, and all of that is beyond the 200-foot buffer from the pool.
Okay. Question number 2, with the drainage problems that have been expressed, including the fact that you're putting in some storm scepters, would it be wise for this property to have a drip strip instead of permitting all of the rainwater to gush out toward the roadway so that it ends up going into the BVW?
The thing is, there's a strip going along the proposed driveway, which is located on the westerly side of the driveway that's all draining into that. And then the Caltech chambers who are taking place basically at the northwest corner of the house, everything's contained within that area. There would be basically, at best, minimal runoff from there towards the perennial area.
So you think even if we had one of our 2 to 3 inch rainfalls, it would still be protected?
It's protected the way it's designed.
Okay, thank you.
Eric?
No further questions. Thanks, Len.
Roy?
The only question I have, what is the reserve area?
What that is that in the event the system fails, that area would be set aside for a reserve area. You could put the system there. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean that the system would go there if the original system failed. It's just that that area would allow for the expansion. Okay, because of the site itself, which is almost 6 acres, if they wanted to, if the system failed, you could do additional testing and it could go other than where that reserve area is. But under state law, you have to show that original system plus the reserve system in the event of failure. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
It looks great to me. I don't have any questions for you, Lenny. Looks like a nice site, you know. It's the kind of development that's great for Sturbridge. Yep.
Good evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak on the 165 Shepherd Road local bylaw notice of intent? No one's on the line.
Anyone in the public who would like to speak on
Anyone
it?
in the audience?
Seeing none, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Eric Gaspar?
Second?
Stephen Chittister, second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
David Barnacle, in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Ron Bishop in favor?
Ed, in favor. Unanimous. Do I have a motion to approve the project?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve for 165 Shepherd Road, the local bylaw notice of intent for the new single-family home with associated site work with the agent's associated notes for the,
Yep.
go ahead, sorry.
So to continue the limit of work line around the development area.
Yep.
Add a silt fence to be included with the straw wattle on the wetland side of the work. And then I had also noted to the grading for the driveway to make sure that it's directed to the strip along the side. And then I had also said demarcate with permanent bounds on the wetland side too.
With those notes.
Great. Do I have a second on
Stephen
that?
Chittister, second.
Second. Discussion.
I have some.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
Does the committee want to give an indication as to whether the demarcation for the 200-foot be bollards or rocks, or do we want to indicate exactly what we're looking for?
Good
Or leave it
question.
up to the owner?
Lenny, what would you like to do? Bollards?
Whatever you prefer, it makes no difference to me. We could put signage or whatever, I don't care.
My
David?
personal preference is no signage, because the signage is just going to decompose. But if you put up bollards or gigantic rocks, that normally gives a clear indication.
I'd like to do bollards.
All it's okay.
And also, just a follow-up on that, is there a certain distance between them you would like to see? 30 feet?
Feet. No.
32? 30 is very specific.
Just saying 50 might be too much, where 20 is too close. Too far, 50 is too far away and 20 might be.
50 feet isn't too much, I don't
Okay,
think.
no, that's up to you guys.
That's what signage is for legal signage, right, Lenny? If you post it?
Yep,
Okay,
50 feet?
okay,
got it.
Yeah.
very good.
Good question, Dave. All right. All in favor?
Stephen Chittister in
David
favor.
Barnacle in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Roy Bishop in favor?
Ed Goodwin in favor, and I heard Dave. David Barnacle's in favor. Unanimous. Thanks a lot, Len.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Yep. Careful on that ice.
We did great, we went out there and no one got hurt, no one fell, right?
That is a great thing to say, Lenny.
We all came home good.
Oh, my God. All right, we are now at 6:15. 17 and 21 South Road, an RDA for the removal of trees.
What am I doing wrong?
Owner
Look at the top.
applicant is Mikhail Carrier, representative none.
The
Okay, how you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Good.
the green button that has a screen on it, click on that.
Oh, stop okay.
There we go.
It's like, why couldn't I make
But
this
now you
bigger?
wanna go get the other plan.
Yeah, we'll put it up when we're ready. I could just ask you to introduce yourself and give a
Oh, I'm
quick
sorry,
summary of the
it's,
project. That's okay.
It's a Michael Carrier, 17 South Road.
All right.
You want me to give a quick summary, overview of it?
Yeah, either way.
Okay. Just for the record, abutter notifications and legal ad have been received. The RDA is a request to remove 18 pine trees found on both properties. We did a site visit out there on Tuesday. The trees start approximately at about the 100-foot buffer zone. There's a bordering vegetated wetland that's on both properties. It gets a little bit closer on the adjacent property. There's riverfront on the site too, but no work is occurring within the riverfront area. The request is to remove the pine trees, not stump or remove the roots except for one that was identified on the site that's next to the shed there.
The big pine, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think there's anything else to add for that.
Okay. Stephen?
Yeah, so I guess my comment would be, I don't have a problem with the tree removal. It is a large number of trees. There was no arborist report to indicate that there's anything wrong with it, that they're not healthy. It's just a matter of, I think you want to remove them for safety concerns.
Mostly safety. One fell in my garage. A couple of spikes fell off the pines, almost hit my shed, pretty large. So kind of, once those start going, they keep falling as the years go.
Yes, so I don't have a problem with the removal, but I would say that the kind of cumulative effects there were, my understanding was there was a large number of trees that were removed previously. This is 18 trees, that's a lot of trees. I'd like to see some replantings close to the wetland or something to provide shade to the wetland. They don't have to be, large trees because there's a concern with the solar panels. And I guess I'd also like to have some kind of protective buffer set up around the wetland, because right now it appears that, it was hard to see with the snow cover, but it looks like it's cleared right up to the edge of the wetland. So those would be my comments.
Eric?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Mike, we talked about replacements on site, and did you get a chance to give any thoughts to what you guys would be interested in putting for replacements?
I mean, my only thing would be kind of where would the placements go from the trees I'm taking down, or is that what you were asking?
Yeah, so we would like to see, if you do replacements, there's no point in putting them, where you're taking the trees down. We're trying to protect the wetland. So we want to provide some shade to that wetland to promote its health. So what we're thinking of is, some tall shrubs, maybe like a dogwood or something that doesn't grow to a height that's going to interfere with your, with the solar panels there.
But is it up towards the shed area?
No, it would be down in the wetland.
Okay.
Yeah. It would be specifically to shade the wetland, so it'd have to be, in and around the wetland.
Okay.
that work for you?
I mean, if, I guess so, I don't, you know, I think me personally, I think there's a lot of shade because the trees I'm taking down, there's about, I'm only taking 9 near the wetland side, and there's a whole grouping of trees before the wetland that's giving shade already, plus my neighbor's trees, I mean, it's pretty shaded down there, for foliage and coverage, you know? I don't think the trees I'm taking down is providing that much shade personally, because there are some abutting, there's a lot more abutting the wetlands, big pines, there are some maples already in there that aren't getting removed, I mean.
Well, I didn't see any trees immediately over the wetland. So, and it's my understanding that there were trees removed from there originally. So, my concern is this is a lot more trees. You know, they may not specifically have provided shade there, but this is to address, you know, providing additional shade to the wetland.
Okay.
No other questions. I'm fine as well with the 18 removals.
Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit. The wetland is, you know, there's been attrition toward the wetland, understandably, you know. So, and we do, at times, go as many as two replacements per tree. So, step back from that, and say that if we did like 15 or 18 small shrubs around the wetland, it would say this is where the wetland starts. You know, high bush blueberry would be one. You got a list of examples. I would think that it would be a good solution. And you're correct that but the size differential is the trees that we're shading are much larger than what you'd be putting in. You know, so so we're trying to do something that helps the wetland and helps you at the same time.
Okay. And how many trees roughly would be needed to be planted near the wetlands?
Did you give him a list? Becky, did he have?
No, we can, New England Wetland Plants has like a, native wetland shrub.
We're talking
list.
shrubs, not trees.
He said dogwood.
Well, yeah, that would be an example of what you could use. Dogwood is in between a tree and a shrub, as far as I'm concerned. It's not, you know, it's not a tree. It's a decorative tree.
Right,
But-
it's something that
Yeah.
would provide more shade
Yeah.
than a
But you
shrub, but it
don't,
would.
you don't want anything that's going to conflict with the solar panels.
Right.
So,
I guess it would be location too, would be my concern too.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty wet down there in the spring.
well,
all-
that's why we want to put some stuff in there. That would be,
I would just say maybe not set a specific, but say a native wetland shrub of a certain size. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be over a certain height roughly. That way, when it comes time for, we've had a lot of people that have put specific plants on plans and they have a hard time finding them. So we're revising those later. That way it would give him some ability to work with what's
yeah.
in stock.
I don't want to give you a plan either.
Exactly.
I agree.
Yeah.
We all agree. You should tell us what you want to put in there.
Okay.
But use it as a Maginot line around the wetland. So that, you know, when you're down there with your mower, you don't mow any of them over, and that by doing that, you're protecting the wetland.
Right, okay.
Anybody?
David still has to chime in.
Dave?
We also still should, this is David Barnacle, the shrubs that we're talking about should not be shrimp shrubs. They should be taller than a man, because otherwise they're not giving any amount of shade to the situation that we have down there. And the applicant just indicated that oftentimes in the spring, it gets wet going down toward that area, which I think is laudable, because what you want to do, even if it's not casting shade out into the wetland, if it casts shade back toward the house without shading the solar panels, it's protecting that wet area, which is vital. So I would suggest that whatever trees or shrubs he uses, there be a minimum height put on it. And I think the commission can determine what that minimum height is, but I would think that, for example, someone indicated high bush blueberry, which is at least a 6 foot tall plant. That would cast some amount of shade if it's right down by the water, and it would do quite well with wet feet. I think that things like that, as well as trees, even if they're not trees that are great in height, would be an absolute requirement, because we have a 2-to-1 required replacement so that we can equalize what the person has taken down on their property, but we're also supposed to be making the situation better, not worse.
So just for clarification, would you be looking for some to be kind of dispersed within the wetland area, or are you looking around the perimeter? If you disperse them more, you might, since they're smaller species, they might, throughout the day provide more shade, so.
Well, you could also alternate between a taller shrub or a small tree and a shrub, and then a taller item and then a shorter item, and it would make it look good too, as well as helping the wetland.
Yeah, I agree with everything that David said. I agree with everything that David said, and I would say, yeah, I would leave it for the most part up to the applicant, but I wouldn't, it would be good to have a couple plantings, in the wetland if we could. That's going to be, right?
Right.
That would provide the best protection. So, but you're right. I would like to see it kind of demarc the boundary so that we're not, mowing right up to the edge of the wetland.
Michael, would you be willing to come back to us with a plan as to how you want to do it?
Yeah, let me think about it and,
Yeah.
go from there, I guess.
These guys, they'll go all night on the subject, so.
I guess, yeah.
So, you're in agreement with what I said, maybe 15 plants?
Yeah, 15 plants with a minimum height of 6 feet, I guess, would
Yeah.
be, but ideally
Yeah.
some taller than that if possible, so.
So do you want it 6 feet when planted? Is that what you're looking for, right
No, no, no,
instant 6?
no.
I'm just wondering,
No,
because now the
something that
cost is
grows-
like,
Something that grows, like a high bush blueberry would grow to be 6 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the kind of border, you're looking to border the wetland?
Right.
Okay, okay. But nothing that's gonna block the solar on that side is what you're
Right.
kind of referring to? Okay.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'd like to,
Oh.
we need
I'm
to-
sorry.
Public
Yep,
comment,
go ahead.
We also have to
audience
close.
hand the line.
Good evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 17 and 21 South Road RDA for the removal of trees? I don't think there's anyone on the line.
Okay.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on the RDA?
Motion to close the public hearing? Eric Gaspar?
Hold on, before we do that, are we going, so we just said he's going to come back with a plan for the replanting. Are we just going to condition the approval on getting an approved plan, or?
I was gonna make the motion to provide a plan to and get guidance from the conservation agent.
Okay.
I think we
Yeah.
can respect her opinion on that.
That's what I would, this is halfway in between a letter permit and RDA, so,
Okay.
I don't want to hold it up, If we can
So-
make it so he can go ahead and cut those.
Yeah, I would recommend just give a few specifics in there, like the number that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And we can work out, evenly disperse them in an area,
15.
and whatever.
15 is the number we're looking for, we agreed on that, and
6 to 10 feet.
6 feet as a,
Okay.
average growth height.
That way, he doesn't have to go
Right.
by a 6 foot.
Yeah.
So,
Close the
Right, that it
public-
grows to a 6-foot height, you're not buying a 6-foot.
You'll give me the
plant.
list of approved wetland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can give you,
motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I second the motion. Stevie Chester.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Stephen
David
Chittister.
Radical in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Roy Bishop in favor?
Ed Goodwin in favor, thanks a lot.
Motion to
Yeah.
approve the 7 South Road RDA for the tree removal of 18 trees. with the staff's notes of 15 replantings to be comprised of, what did you want to add to that, Becky?
No, go ahead, you can, yeah,
Comprised of trees that will mature at 6 feet or higher, from a list of trees that will be provided by the conservation agent.
so native shrubs or small trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would just say this is also an RDA, so you have to issue a determination too.
What,
I think it's a +5.
positive
right?
5?
Yeah, it's a +5 under the local bylaw. I would say, because it's also under the Wetlands Protection Act, I would say that you could do a negative number 3. It's, you know, there's a portion of the trees that are right on the edge of the 100-foot. I'd say that, you know, the conditions would be under your local bylaw. I would just say that, yeah, conditional number 3 probably, and that approval is given. The condition would be that there's no, you know, no cutting, removal. There's no earthwork associated with the tree. Sorry, I didn't think about this in advance. No earthwork associated with it, therefore there's no notice of intent that's required.
Positive number 5 and negative number 3 with no earthwork.
Right.
Yeah.
There we go. You got all that, Mike?
Oh,
We'll
write it out.
Get a letter.
I
We'll
second,
get it all in writing.
All in favor?
I second the motion, Stephen Schuster.
Yeah. David, how do you vote?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Schuster in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Wood Bishop in favor?
Ed Goodwin in favor. Thanks for coming in, Mike.
Thanks, guys, have a good night.
Yeah, take care.
Chairman, I do have one question, however, which has to do with the general topic. We just had an applicant come in and request to take down 19 trees without benefit of having a tree person evaluate the trees. Is that going to become our norm?
So we're actually, going to answer your question, Dave. We're working on, we talked about this before, we just haven't had a chance to do it, is relooking at our tree removal policy, and how, and what we'd be looking for, to give people a little more guidance when they come in with these, because not always is an arborist report necessary, and certain thresholds of removal might require, an RDA versus what we would just have as a regular letter permit. So we'll be working on that as we're, moving forward here in the future. Okay.
But at the present time, we have a regulation that is not being followed.
Well, it doesn't say in the regulations that they have to do an arborist report for that. That's something that we have on the actual, you know, when we use the tree removal permit, that
Right.
it may be required, so.
And in this case, David, because it was between the 100 and 200-foot buffer zones, and it's heavily treed in the area that they're coming down, that was a consideration of this.
Some was within a little bit of 100, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we are now at 28 Allen Road. We have a single-family home and associated site work. Ethan Hillman is the applicant. Scott Morrison, Ecotech, issue of determination. Okay?
So just for the record, we have proof of abutter notifications and legal ad.
Gentlemen? Thank you. Please introduce yourselves.
Good evening. Just for the record, Scott Morrison from Ecotech. Here with me is Ethan Hillman, the property owner and applicant.
Good afternoon.
So we filed a request for determination of applicability. For those of you that
You have one you can put
We
up
got
there?
one on the, we'll put it
Well,
on the screen.
yeah,
want
let
to
me,
put one up. Right there.
gonna move on, stuff. Yep,
All right,
clockwise.
That's good.
that's fine.
Oh no, that actually is, it's just written the other way on there. That's actually the way it is on the property, so,
Yeah.
perfect. Good size.
All right, just to get you oriented, we've got Allen Road runs here, so this is the frontage. There's a proposed driveway here, the proposed house, septic system out in the back. There's a wetland Down the street, out in this area here, if you measure back from that point back to the property corner, it's about 210 feet. So it's this, the closest point's the connection to this existing well here. So well outside the 200-foot buffer zone. There's also a wetland about 300 or 375 feet to the rear of the property, a little isolated wetland. The septic system is about 100 feet from the back of the property to here, so there's substantial distance there, so there's no work within the 100-foot buffer zone. The nearest wetland is underneath the power lines, so there's a pocket of BVW here. I measured it at 138 feet from the property line, and also provided a GIS figure in the application, which calculated it at 136 feet. So the proposed system is 68 feet from the property line, which places the septic system grading 202 feet from the wetland resource area. That's to this grade right here. To protect the wetlands, we're proposing silt fence wrapping around the back of this. So based upon the location here, the silt fence may be like 2 feet into the 200-foot buffer zone. Under the Town of Sturbridge Wetlands Protection Bylaw, there can't be alternatives, and we have to demonstrate no significant impact to wetland resource areas. Because of the fact that there's an existing well here, you need to maintain a 100-foot offset for the septic system. So this is really the only place for the septic system. You could perhaps move it back further, but I think it's forested in the back here, so it would only result in additional clearing unnecessary for the project. So we feel that based upon that, this is the least amount of disturbance based upon the location, based upon meeting the Title V required offset to an existing well. The other issue is no significant impact to wetland resource areas. You've got 2-minute soils in here, it's nice gravel. We're proposing an erosion control barrier here. It slopes down relatively steeply, and then the septic system's kind of at the base of that slope where it levels out. So with this erosion control barrier, and again, you're almost 200 feet to that off-site wetland, so there will be no significant impact to that wetland based upon the erosion control barrier and the other fact that, I think there's more disturbance to that wetland based upon the fact that it's underneath the power lines and routinely, mowed and cut. So again, septic system's completely outside the 200-foot buffer zone. I think we've got the erosion control barrier about 2 feet into that. So we're hereby requesting the Conservation Commission issue a negative determination to allow this project to proceed.
Okay. Becky?
Okay. So I had become aware of this permit because a building permit application was filed. When that happens, we do like an interdepartment review to see if things require review. At that time, I looked at the GIS layers. It indicated that, there's the wetlands that Scott noted off-site. It also indicated there was a hydrologic connection close to this property feeding to the north to that wetland up there. So I said that, if someone hadn't looked at it, it needed to be looked at to determine where the wetland line was. He had hired Ecotech to go out there. They submitted a report with their findings where Scott said it was 136 feet or whatnot. I said, at that point, it appeared necessary to file an RDA because there is the 200-foot buffer zone on the site based off his work that he did. So they filed the RDA. We did a site visit out there the other day. There was a significant snow cover, so it makes it difficult to, at this time of year, verify resource area delineation. So it may be accurate, but unfortunately with the snow cover, we can't really do that right now. Had we known about it, previously, I think we could have, been able to do that earlier in the season when it was still the growing season. Like I said, it may be outside of the 200-foot buffer, but unfortunately, without being able to see where the wetland line is and verify that, I don't know that you can make that determination at this time.
All right. Stephen?
So what is the limit of clearing on this project? Is the entire lot going to be cut, or?
No, the whole front of the lot is existing lawn, or I think there's actually portions that are sand because there's like an old horseshoe pit.
Volleyball court.
Yeah, the only place that needs to be cleared is where you've got the septic system proposed and the erosion control barrier. And then, so this remaining portion out in the back will all remain forested.
Okay, so there's no clearing up where the house is?
No, there's not a tree in sight.
Okay.
I had uploaded some photos, but I can put them up if you want to see.
Can you put them up?
Yep.
That'd be great.
Do you happen to have a GIS figure of it, aerial photo?
Yes, yep. Yep, let's see.
Yeah, sorry I didn't get to make the site visit.
I'm gonna do the,
What do you mean? You had to actually work for your job? Weird.
Oh, okay.
so,
Yeah, so,
yeah, you can see the front area is cleared.
yeah, so if you look at the upper left-hand one, that's kind of the tree line looking back at the road. So the well's right about here. So the house and driveway will go in over on this side.
Well, I think this is standing by the road, looking straight down into the property, so it's like the open field lawn
I'm
area.
sorry.
And
I
then
thought it was the opposite.
Yeah, that's okay. The tree line is the,
That's
where
the
it
septic
drops off pretty steeply right there. It's actually pretty significant. And then you go down to an area that's currently forested. Actually, I can show you where. So, yeah, here's a photo looking from the property off into the power line right away.
Yeah, so the wetland would be here.
Yep, you can see all the trees cut. I think that the utility company has seen this on another one in a different area in town. They've been cutting a lot of the trees along the edge and just kind of dropping them there. So you can see that there's all, if it was them, there's all that tree cutting that occurred there. And it kind of gently slopes down to where you can see the shrubs in the background. So I think Scott's flag was kind of in where the shrubs were, past kind of like that big first clump, if I remember correctly. So kind of this area where it kind of slopes down to, can't really review vegetation right now.
So is this a picture of where the septic system is going? You're
No,
standing in
this
it?
is a picture underneath the power line. So this will all
But I
remain.
mean, where the picture was taken from.
Yeah,
Oh,
the septic's
it's further
behind
back.
you, probably about 40 feet, maybe, I guess, based off what
Yeah,
they
there's a
said.
stone wall. You can barely see it, but stone wall's here. So where this photo was taken, I'm guessing is probably 20 feet off the stone wall. So the septic system would be about 40 feet behind, like if you turn around.
Okay,
40
so my
feet back.
apologies. But, so the wetland is downhill, the septic system is back here, we have this big power line
Yeah,
corridor in
yeah.
between the two. Okay.
Do you want me to put the aerial photo up too?
If you got it easily available, it might be helpful for commission
We
members.
actually got paperwork at the house from National Grid that they were doing tree maintenance there. They have a 300-foot right-of-way, which is another reason why the septic system went where it did, because we had to be outside of the 300-foot right-of-way.
Oh,
So they left paper on all the mailboxes saying they were having Lewis Tree come in and they're doing a lot of tree removal within that 300-foot buffer.
yeah. What was I gonna say? So I put this together from when we went out on the site, just based off generally where your
Yep.
point was. Scott, was that a GPS point that you put on your aerial?
GPS is the 136, which the aerial, and then
That
I
you had, okay.
taped it. I followed with a tape measure to confirm that. So here's the lot here. This is the volleyball court. So that's where the house and driveway will go in this existing clearing. And then the septic system is tucked in right here. So everything beyond it, between the septic system and the edge of the property line will remain forested, as well as the area, there's a forested area behind there that'll remain.
Okay. Are all the trees coming down on the slope between the house and the septic system, or is that, are some of those left?
No, well, I think you'll have to clear that to get the piping in and equipment back there.
Okay.
But again, it's only gonna be, a quarter of the width of this to get that septic system in.
Thanks.
Scott, do you think it's possible that when they go in to do that, they could limit the trees that are removed to outside of the 200 foot?
We actually have there's enough cleared space there already that we can get equipment in. The only thing that we would need to do is just to run the pipe from the house, so an excavator bucket worth, and it's such a small distance that's treed there, they could reach from either side and take out what they need, fill it in, you'd have a 2-foot swath.
Yeah.
I don't like taking the trees down, I mean, you don't want to see the power lines.
Sure,
So
right,
I'd like to keep it as treed as possible.
I'm with you. Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Actually, it's a really nice site for a house, and I know you're gonna do a good job with it, but the one question the concern that I have is is the actual distance to the wetland. I mean, that wetland, go back to that pile of wood. Right now, that's not, we can't go in and confirm delineation.
We were on site, we stood at this property line, and I specifically asked if you wanted to go in, I think Becky asked if you wanted to.
You asked if we wanted to go in, and I certainly didn't want to go in. I mean, that is not when I can tell, what am I gonna get out of that? That's a pile of logs. We really couldn't get an accurate delineation on the wetland boundary.
Well, the other thing too is that the application, we put it in such a way that we're not actually asking for confirmation of that wetland boundary. We're seeking approval of the proposed project, which
Yeah.
is well outside the 100-foot buffer zone. So if the commission wants to make it a finding that you're not confirming any wetland boundaries by this proposed project, that's fine with us.
But I think confirming the boundary, I understand you're not asking for that, is what tells us where the jurisdiction is. And that's, I think, where the concern is. If you don't know where the boundary is, you don't know where the buffer zones are. And that's where it's hard. We do have provisions about filings, in times of year, and I understand that this wasn't something you were aware of, that there could be a wetland there. And unfortunately, with the snow cover and being outside of the growing season, you can't review the herbaceous vegetation. It makes it difficult.
But I don't think anybody, it's, the 200-foot buffer zone goes to here. So even if that buffer zone were to move 5 or 10 feet, we're still only in the 100 to 200-foot buffer zone. And that's why in the application, I demonstrated that we comply with the performance standards for work within this zone. So there's no alternatives because it's based upon where this existing well is, that we must remain 100 feet away. And by installing the erosion control barrier and having that distance, there will be no significant, even if that wetland boundary changes, there will be no significant impact to that wetland. And I would argue you're not going to have any impact to that wetland at all. You've got 2-minute perks and erosion control barrier.
That's something
during
that, right,
construction.
Right, and take into consideration, I guess
David,
it's
did I
just,
forget you? David?
He's not on screen.
Will the 200-foot buffer zone be approached and worked in? There has to be prior approval. If the conditions do not permit prior approval, then we cannot approve it until such time as the conditions are such that we can see that the 200-foot buffer zone is not being impacted. To my way of thinking, that's very simple. It cannot be prior reviewed with these conditions. And sure as heck, on Saturday, the conditions are going to get an awful lot worse.
So, I mean, I look at it this way, and maybe I'm looking at this completely wrong. I don't think there's any question it's outside the 100-foot. I think that we would approve this project if it was inside the 200-foot. So the minutia of just trying to figure out where the line is, it's somewhere between 100 feet and 200 feet. It's the local bylaw, not the state Wetland Protection Act. We would approve it regardless, I would think, based on what I have here and what I've seen and what I saw on site. So is the specific within, 5, 10, or even 15 or 30 feet really the determinant factor of whether or not we can approve this project or not? It would seem to me that seems illogical. Because for me, I would approve this project if it was, given all of the things that Scott had pointed out and the narrowness of this lot, where the septic needs to go, I'm gonna raise my hand to approve this project all day long within the 100, 200 foot buffer. So I don't see why we're quibbling about minutia. Just my 2 cents.
Right? Stephen?
Well, I already commented, but yeah, I mean, is there any chance it's within the 100 foot?
I don't think so.
Okay.
There's no way.
I'd say that would be a concern if
Yeah.
if it was.
No,
within the
I
100
agree.
foot.
I think it's a good site.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Eric, and I think in this case, because we have this utility right away situated in between the property and the wetland, all of those trees were cut down.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with it as long as we don't, take a measurement as a delineated wetland over in the field, because we don't have that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, can we approve it conditionally or something, or how does that work?
Well, I think I go along with Eric. I think we could approve it. I think it's, the impact is going to be negligible, that it's a defined site.
Okay.
But that'd be my call on it.
Would you want to see a complete limit of work shown around all of the areas for your records? You can condition it
Yeah,
for that.
that would probably make sense, huh?
So essentially take that other plan and then just draw a line around it showing the
For our
limit
limit
of
of
work.
work line, that
Yeah.
can be delineated and as a condition and have that set up on site with erosion controls.
Yeah, send that to you tomorrow morning.
Okay. You want to see if there's anybody in the audience?
How much are we missing by not being able to see the vegetation, not being able to see where the watermarks on the telephone poles might be, not being able to see where the water rises up? I mean, you've got an 8% slope coming down into this area. So conceivably, an awful lot of water could collect down there.
Well, the other thing, if I may comment to that, the other question, if water ponds, if you continue down the slope, and I think I brought you all, the 2 members that attended the site walk, we went to the back property line and we looked down at that, there's a isolated wetland in the back that's gotta be at least 40 feet lower than the site.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna pond in that direction.
So if it ponds up to where these power poles are, I think we're all in trouble.
Okay.
I'd agree with that. I don't know if we're all in trouble, but I would agree that there's not a big chance it's going to happen. Did we have anybody?
Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak on 28 Allen Road? RDA for construction of a single-family home? Is there anyone in the public audience that would like to speak on 28 Allen Road?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Stephen Chittister, a second.
Any discussion? All in favor of closing the public hearing, please raise your hand. Correct.
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Roy Bishop in favor?
Ed Goodwin in favor. I have a motion to approve the project.
Yeah, so are we, we're going to make a motion that this is jurisdictional with a positive number 5? Is that accurate? And a negative number 3?
Well, I would recommend it's a positive 2B. You're not confirming any resource area delineation
Okay,
as part
that's
of
the
the
one I'm looking
approval.
for. Yeah, thank you.
It would be a positive number 5, because you're saying it's subject to the local bylaw, and you're adding conditions, so whatever conditions you want. We talked about adding a complete limit of work around the development, and then it would be a negative number 1. It's not within jurisdiction under the Wetlands Protection Act. It's not within the resource area or the buffer zone, therefore they don't need to file under that.
So, a positive.
based off what you
A
said.
negative 2B, a positive 5, and a
Nope,
negative 1?
positive 2B,
Positive 2B,
positive 5.
Positive 5, negative 1.
What- Yeah.
All right. I would like to make a motion, all of that for 35 Podunk Road.
28 Allen.
28 Allen Road, sorry. Boy, I'm getting lost. 28 Allen Road, new single-family home with associated site work with the agent's appropriate notes delineating the limit of work.
I'll
Is
get
that
to you
to be or
tomorrow.
not to be?
That is the question.
Stephen Chittister, I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
David Barnacle abstain.
All right.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Roy Bishop in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
For your time.
Yeah. .235 Podunk Road, RDA continued construction of a single-family home and associated site work.
I just tried to approve that.
Yes.
Question.
Ed?
Question on what?
Well, Conservation Commission sent to us a notice to be here for 6:35 to hear the construction of a single-family road on 165 Shepherd Road.
Okay.
So, we don't send it, it's our notification, and the engineer, the representative sends this.
Oh, jeez.
Well, that's no problem, right?
It is a problem, it's a wrong.
Yeah, because he was supposed to put 6:05 on there, because that was the first hearing that we had, so.
That's
Yeah,
no
it is.
problem.
Yep, it is.
So what was his decision?
I don't know, we're gonna figure that out. Are you in a butter?
Yeah.
Right, he provided us
Six lines are
receipts that he
Yeah,
notified
just
everybody,
today.
but I didn't notice
just
that, he
gave
didn't
it
put
to
the
us.
right time. We give him a date and time, and he's supposed to put that on here.
You just gave it to us right now.
That's why, at first I apologize for not turning my cell phone off. I used to do this kind of stuff, so.
I'm sorry that this has happened, I think this is the first time that I know of.
Well, it's, I mean, that's a real issue. I mean, there might be abutters that want to know what went on and have comment.
Absolutely, but you're not getting any argument here. We didn't know.
I understand. I do understand.
What are you gonna do?
Well, so do you want a summary of what was discussed as a starting point, just to be able to hear?
Yeah, I know it'll come out at some point, right? You get meeting minutes that you'll give us, but
Yeah,
you know,
so,
that doesn't,
we do have,
they
like,
give me a voice on, you know, on.
Do you have the-
Oh, no,
I wanted to
no,
is
say
that the plan over there?
Yep.
We can show you that plan real quick, so we can,
Can you bring it up on screen, Becky?
I can, if you want to give
Well,
him.
Yeah.
I don't want to delay someone else's.
No,
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 that's okay.
no, we do want to delay. We've got an error in what we're doing.
Mr. Chairman, you have someone speaking
You're all
off
set about it?
microphone?
We should have
Yeah, do you,
Calvin, can you sit at that table so that your voices
Yeah,
are
so
on
your
the
mics
mic?
are on.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
We just have a commissioner that's virtual and he can only hear if you're at a mic.
sorry about that.
so this is the project. So, what it is they want to build a single-family house.
Yep.
You can see the roads down here, there's a wetland across the street and on their property. I was working with the engineer before he filed and when he filed with what their original plan was. So like I said, it's a single-family house. Yep, you have the
That'd be a
plan?
lot easier for me to.
Yeah, give him the
get more
plan.
familiar with the plans.
It's a single-family house. They're not working within 100 feet of the wetland, so we look at things under state jurisdiction, so the State Wetlands Protection Act, and also the local bylaw that we have. Like all local bylaws, it's a little more restrictive. So the concern here is the wetland that's identified on the site is identified as a potential vernal pool, and we have special provisions that have extra protections for them. So we require setbacks for that. They have an automatic 100-foot no-touch, and then between 100 and 200 feet of that wetland, they can also restrict development as well. So we worked with, like I said, I've been speaking to the engineer prior to him coming to the hearing. They worked to minimize, they moved the septic away, further away from the wetland. They're doing driveway runoff, so that way the runoff doesn't go towards the road, which then can go down towards the wetland. We asked them to catch their roof runoff with like an underground system that helps recharge it into the ground. They tightened up, there's a limit of work shown on the plan, and they really pulled that close to the purple line on here, really kind of pulled that close. What was discussed during the public hearing was, in addition to that, wrapping this purple line around really close to the driveway here and back up around the septic system, really kind of minimizing what they clear of forest out there. So that was, I can just,
So he's kind of he's putting a house basically, there's a house right before this line.
Yes.
On the
Yep.
right.
Yep.
To this side of that 200 buffer. And he's squeezing that driveway right in there between the edge of that and the.
Correct.
Existing,
cart path there.
You know that
Yeah,
cart path
I
is?
know where it is.
Yeah.
So.
Because the trees are already
we're heading
cleared.
Towards 135.
Right, this is where I live.
Oh, you live over here?
You have
I live.
another one of these?
yes.
We're on a butter on the left side of the project, we own 6 Belanger.
Okay, down the street, okay.
Yes, we run all the way up to where.
Belanger's off of
we run up
Wallace?
to we run up to the wetland ourselves, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this property was recently merged in. The owner had additional property
I
and,
know, it's a really funky lot.
Yeah.
I looked at buying it, but I was just like.
yeah. So before it was much smaller, now it's a little over 5 acres in size.
Right.
So the commission also asked, like I said, we want them to continue a limited work line that really shows staying close to their development to minimize clearing. Add a silt fence with their erosion controls. They've got to show us that their driveway grading is gonna direct, there's, on the top part of the driveway on the plan, there's a infiltration trench there with crushed stone and stuff. They gotta do that, and then, we also asked them to permanently demarcate their limit of work on the wetland side. So they're gonna put bollards every 50 feet. That way, what we're interested, or we don't want to happen, is that there's cumulative impacts over time, because they did allow them to, they have to put the driveway through that 100 to 200 foot area, so. That's what the overall project is, and I apologize, because, like I said, we provide the engineer with the date and time, and, he sends the notifications out, and he didn't properly notified you. And right, he just brought us
Yeah,
the,
they sure did.
yeah.
So from here, you guys approved the project as it.
Yes.
With the things that I just
Where
mentioned.
does it work in town? I've been here for 5 years, but I used to do planning board and selectmen work in New Hampshire. So where does it go from here? Back to the planning board, or?
No,
is it
no,
done?
planning board's not
Project's
involved.
approved?
No, there's still things that'll have to happen, so, because this is what's called an A&R lot, approval not required, they don't have to go to planning board.
Yeah,
And as long as they meet, they have to meet certain setbacks off the property, they have certain, requirements for, thresholds of structures on there, lot coverage they have to meet. If they can't meet those, they would go to zoning board of appeals, but this is a new lot, so they have to meet those things.
Yeah.
Conservation is involved, like we said, when you're within 200 feet. They have to get a building permit, and they also have to get approval for their septic system from Board of Health.
Okay, so who looks at all the side setbacks and stuff like that? Who's,
That's the building inspector.
really?
He's also the zoning enforcement officer. So that's his job when these things come in. These plans will show setbacks, all of those things that are necessary to get a building permit.
okay. All right, cool.
As an aside, there's plenty of town boards that could probably use your energy, so.
I've actually been thinking about it, so we'll.
So I had a question, actually. Before this meeting, I had gone to the engineer and gotten a copy of these plans, so I had a chance to study them at home. I had a concern, so there's, the septic system, as I understand it, is here.
Yep.
And then across from it is, I guess, a leach field?
That's that's the reserve over there. Yep, and that's if this one fails, they have to show they have a spot that will perk, that they can put a new one in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Mass law when you build.
So he did revise these plans probably from what he gave you.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess my concern was, it says avoid vehicular traffic over system, and I can't help but notice that the driveway is right between the two. So,
Right. Well, the driveway, the good news from our point of view is that the driveway is existing. In other words, so we don't have a lot of cutting. It protects the vernal pool, which is what we're interested in.
Gotten a little wider over time. but-
Yeah, right, yeah.
But their Board of Health will check. They have certain, under Title V, they have certain requirements, like you can't put a driveway over it, but you can put it near. There's, a house has to have a setback from it, setbacks from the tanks, things like that. So they have to verify that as well before they can install anything that Title V's met.
Well, I think hopefully you'll voice some displeasure with Jay Albert for failing to
I'll talk to
follow,
him tomorrow.
Yeah,
the rules properly.
Very much would have liked to be here for it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
sorry that that happened, but thank you for coming out.
yeah,
Yep,
thanks.
thank you for the comments.
Thank you very much. Again, apologize for the cell phone.
No apologies.
You're not apologizing, we are. Thank you, take care.
Well, that stinks.
All right.
How do we avoid that?
Because our rules say that you can provide it right before the meeting.
Right, so he
So
provides
you
this
just
to
walked
us,
up
right?
here and handed me a pile of things, and
Yeah.
it's too late at that
Right.
point.
So where are we? We are.
Dave, can you see?
Podunk?
Hold on.
Why can't I?
Yeah.
I don't want to share, there we go. I think it's-
Becky, you wanna?
All right, 635, 235 Podunk Road. This is a
Yep.
continued RDA for the construction of a single-family house and associated site work. We received a written request for continuation. This has been on hold for some time because they need to do a new perk out here. They're looking at moving the septic system. There was also some questions about if the lot, there's two lots there. They have to revise the wetland line, and in addition to that, there was a question about the wetland upland ratio of it being a buildable lot. So there's some things they still need to do. They haven't been able to do the perk because of time of year, et cetera. They're asking for a continuation to March 10th.
Okay. Motion to approve?
Motion to approve the continuance.
Do we want to just check and make sure there's no one that wants to?
David?
Are we gonna go to the public?
Can I go to the public?
Yep, go to the public.
Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the RDA for 235 Podunk Road? There's no one on the line.
All right.
So motion to approve the continuation to the meeting on March 10th.
Stephen Chittister, I second.
No discussion?
Any discussion? All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Asbar in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor?
Great. Okay, now we are at 235 Podunk Road.
Ditto.
Local notice of intent,
Same thing,
continued.
same concerns. It's a continuation request to March 10th.
Okay, you want to check that?
Again, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the local bylaw notice of intent for 235 Podunk Road? Doesn't appear anyone's on the line.
Motion to continue this hearing until the meeting on March 10th. Eric Asbar.
Second?
Stephen Chittister, a second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Asbar in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, we are now to, what's the date?
53 Hillside.
Yep, I know, I'm just checking the time. We're well beyond the 6:45, okay? 53 Hillside Drive, RDA, continued, new single-family home, and associated site work. Okay, gentlemen?
Just to do a quick summary, sorry. So, just as, this is a continued, RDA from our last meeting. As you said, the project includes construction of a single-family house and associated site work. The RDA is requesting to make a determination whether the area or the work is, subject to our local bylaw. The project was continued as there was a request, for additional information at the last hearing. We continued it to allow for requests for proposals to be solicited. I did put out 3 requests for proposals, as I put in the detailed agenda. 2 were received back. One was too broad and one was too narrow. They both didn't adequately meet the scope of what was requested, per what you discussed at the meeting, what you were looking for. I did ask both of them to, resubmit and what the information was needed. I did, since putting out the detailed agenda, did receive one back that was revised for you. My recommendation at this time would be that I think that we should try to get some more proposals for you to look at, so you have some things to compare to each other for this project. And also, since the last hearing, the applicant has requested that the RDA now include your review of this to see if it's subject, the working area is subject to the Wetlands Protection Act. And, if that's the case, if they want to add that on, that should be added to what you were asking for, that additional information that was agreed upon.
How you doing?
Good yourself? Good evening, Chairman.
Introduce yourselves.
I'm John Rowley. I am the prospective builder and owner of the property.
Yeah.
My name's Chris Myra. I'm a lawyer from Springfield. It's been a while since I appeared before you, and I'm representing Mr. Rowley. I don't know if you recall it, but Mr. Jalbert was involved, and he didn't remember me, so.
That hurts, doesn't it?
May I give my information to Ms. Chandra, please?
Thank you.
Thank you. We're coming before you with the hope of reaching some sort of, say, accommodation or resolution of a problem. We had asked to see the request for proposal and the responses. I think Ms. General said she didn't want to share those until the board had had a chance to review them and discuss them.
Right.
We still would like to see them, them being public records and all, but hopefully if we can resolve this, that won't be necessary. Going through the peer review process is taking too long. We've got to make construction season, and we want to get onto the merits, if we can, of the determinations. We saw that in the detailed agenda for the January 6th meeting, staff, I assume Ms. Shonara, recommended that there be a positive determination with at least with respect to the local bylaw as an isolated land subject to flooding. But that the commission could seek peer review for further analysis of that subject. To us,
You can take that mask off if it's bothering you.
I'm sorry, you can't hear me, I'm sorry.
If it's bothering you, you can take it off, is what I said.
No, it doesn't. It's just, it pulls my hearing aid out when it
Okay.
does it, and it makes me feel old and deaf.
It's doing some of that to all of us.
Too many Who concerts. There we go. As we see it, we think from the analysis in the January 6th detailed agenda, it's clear. We've submitted a request for determination under the Wetlands Protection Act, but we think it is absolutely clear this is not subject to jurisdiction under the Wetlands Protection Act. So we are talking about the bylaw. With respect to the bylaw, we believe the absence of vegetation that has been determined by 2 professional wetland scientists, and I think from site review by others, that this is not an isolated wetland. So that leaves isolated land subject to flooding. And the information is that after 3.85 inches of rain, a week later, there were no puddles on the property in the subject area. This indicates, I think rather clearly, that there is no possibility that there could be a vernal pool in this area. If it can't hold 3.85 inches of water for a week, there is no way it can hold water for 2 months. So it brings us back to the issue of isolated land subject to flooding under the bylaw. We think the analysis in the detailed agenda for the January 6th meeting puts forward a position that is one that needs to be approached cautiously, as that agenda notation spells out. This land is topographically, or it undulates in a stony woods, much like a great deal of the land in Sturbridge. That is what the analysis says. So whether or not to extend the isolated land subject to flooding to this piece of property is something that ought to be approached cautiously, we suggest, because it would extend jurisdiction to an awful lot of places where I'm quite sure you do not want to have jurisdiction, clogging your agenda and having too many people coming in here for projects that you probably do not want to review. That being the case, we think what is proposed, as set forth in Scott Morrison's report, and Mr. Morrison has been here earlier, he doesn't need to be reintroduced, I know he's known to you, and that raising the culvert pipe under the driveway will create so much storage that we easily meet the performance standard for isolated land subject to flooding. And that being the case, we come back to this isolated land subject to flooding question from the perspective of it's an academic issue. We are arguing, or excuse me, the statement in the detailed agenda as to whether or not the Sturbridge wetlands bylaw has a size or volume requirement with respect to isolated land subject to flooding. And if it doesn't, then how do you distinguish sites similar to this site which have puddling on them? I don't think puddle is a term of art necessarily, but we all know what a puddle is. And deeming this to be an isolated land subject to flooding because after 3.85 inches of rain, it had some puddles on it. It's akin to, I guess analogously, after rain, if you walk through the woods, every step you take would have a puddle in it. And I do not think that is an appropriate area for jurisdiction. However, what we'd like to do, we would like most of all if the commission would determine that this is not isolated land subject to flooding under the bylaw, and do that without further peer review based on the opinions of two professional wetland scientists who are well known to this board and I know this board respects. Alternatively, and I think this involves more process than is necessary, but it is the commission's determination. If the commission determines that it is an isolated land subject to flooding, and we would not agree, but that is a position the commission could take, then we can move directly on to a notice of intent and show that we satisfy the performance standards and get moving with this project. So Mr. Rowley can meet construction season.
Yes.
We have, I'm familiar, with the use of peer review, and it is somewhat frustrating to have two PWSs have their work reviewed by someone else, especially we don't know whether they are professional wetland scientists or registered professional soil scientists, which Mr. Morrison is. But I know Mr. Kravowski called my client, and I know Mr. Kravowski is well known to you as well, called my client in connection with responding to the request for proposals and asked if he could visit the site, and he did with Mr. Morrison, and he said there are no hydric soils here, which is consistent with the positions presented by Mr. Morrison. And he's here to speak to that if you have any further questions on it.
We've gone to a point here, okay?
Yeah.
And we've heard what you had to say, and the position that we're in, we agreed to at the last meeting with your client. That
I'm sorry, which?
That we would go to a peer review,
Yeah,
okay? That's where we are right now.
okay.
The fact that you're going to, we're not cavalier, we're not, all the things that you want to imply. In fact, it's
Excuse
kind
me, I
of,
wasn't implying that.
and we did not send an engineer out with Scott Morrison. He did that on his own. And if you've lived around here, you know that in the time that, since the last meeting to now, we've been looking at a block of ice. So, I mean, we'd like to move forward with this for a peer review. And and believe me, the people that we will be hiring, if we get to that point, will be completely adequate, and they will solidify the discrepancies that have been brought to us by the same firm.
I don't want to interrupt you, I beg your pardon.
So, so that's where we are right now, and that's, unless the board, somebody would like to.
Just had a question. Were you indicating that you guys would be okay with us deeming it jurisdictional, that it's isolated land subject to flooding, and then try to figure out how you guys can work your project to make it conform to the standards under an NOI? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
So,
In so many words, I would say,
I'm just,
to answer
in
Mr.
layman terms, I'm
Okay.
not an attorney. And, that.
If you can
to
say it
me,
better than
that,
me, please.
whether or not that is possible, that would seem to me to be a reasonable request that we can look at to see if it's something that we can make the project perform under the standards, because what other than that is the peer review going to come back with? I'm trying to not give any disrespect to your consultants, and I said on site, listen, I find myself to be a pretty practical and reasonable person, but when there were wetlands flags in a drought, and then there were no wetlands flags in a period of almost, historical wetness that we've had over the last, 6 months or so.
Yeah.
That doesn't pass the sniff test to me, and I think under any reasonableness standard, I think we were well within our rights to ask for that. So I don't, it's not intended to call into question anybody's professionalism. It's, the simple fact of the matter is, there were flags there, and then there weren't flags there, and we needed to figure out the determination on that. But if what you're saying is you're okay with us deeming it jurisdictional, well, then that changes the variables for me at least.
He's not saying that.
What I'm saying is, thank you, you expressed it more clearly, and Chairman, I wasn't implying anything, and I disturbed if you took it that way. It certainly wasn't intended.
Did you say that the engineers that we would hire wouldn't be capable? Is that what you implied?
Am I what?
Did you say that you thought that if we hired engineers, that they would not be capable?
I don't know how I could say that. You hire Mr. Morrison on occasionally to do peer review. I think you do hire Mr. Kravowski, you hire a lot of different people to do peer review.
And that's what we plan to do.
Well, this is what we would request. This follows up from Mr. Gaspar. We would ask that you forego the peer review, make a determination of applicability under the local bylaw, and we will proceed with a notice of intent. We just need to move the process.
I just want to add, just for the record, that I believe it was back in July when the area was in question. Had we been contacted at that time, we could have been resolved at this time. I just want to make that clear because unfortunately the time of year, as you know, it's not conducive to do this type of work where we could have this, provided once they get reviews, get it started right away. I just wanted to say that because unfortunately we weren't aware at that time. Had we been, we could have had this resolved, I just want to add that for the record.
If I may,
Chairman.
just to bring this.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that
Waiting
Mr.
to be
Porter?
acknowledged, Ed.
What?
He's waiting to be
Okay.
acknowledged.
Yeah, David, go ahead.
It appears to me that we had this on the agenda for tonight in order to further select 2 more people for peer review.
That's correct.
And it does not appear that we have started discussing that yet.
No, I know. I was trying to be respectful and trying to give them time to, to voice
But
their
so far, they
opinion.
haven't
But
talked about.
we're going down. Go ahead, David, you're gonna say?
They haven't talked about what we have as an intention for this particular item on the agenda. The agenda specifically says that we are going to select, or we are going to look at the possibility of selecting a couple more people for peer review so that we have something to compare the one acceptable peer review that we have thus far.
Respectfully, that's not what the agenda says.
Why don't you wait for the chair to recognize you from this point forth, just so we can get somewhere. Gentlemen, do you want, Stephen, what's your thoughts on this?
I agree that the decision was made already. I don't, and I'm a little concerned that it's being stated unequivocally that this is, the only thing that this could possibly be is land subject to flooding under the local bylaw, and I don't know that.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion is that the peer review should continue.
Roy?
Do we have a way of closing?
Oh, Roy was not,
Oh, he wasn't, okay.
Roy wasn't here for the last public hearing and
Okay.
he didn't have the opportunity to watch it, therefore he's got to abstain.
No, I personally feel the same way you do. I think we need to find out, and we need to have a peer review to do it. And we're halfway into that process, and we should continue it with this meeting tonight.
On the agenda, it says a request for determination. That is our request. We'd like a determination.
Yep. Okay. Now, the one, you want it under the Wetland Bylaw also?
Or Wetlands Protection Act.
Wetland Protection Act. Sorry.
That's pending. We have that was filed in, I think, on January 11th. Is that right, Ms. General?
I don't have it right in front of me what day it was filed, so I can't confirm, but right, they did ask, they did submit.
Okay, so we would be doing,
I thought
we
that
would be
was
doing both.
at your suggestion or at someone's suggestion.
That
I'm
only
sorry.
makes sense. So Becky,
It
where
was
do we
asked
stand?
to
Yeah, where do we
filed.
stand on doing that?
Well, so this is a continued RDA. So, right, there was a request for determination of applicability, that's in front of them. They did have the last public hearing in which they did vote and agree for the additional information. As I said, since then, they did ask for it under the Wetlands Protection Act as well to have a determination. So, I don't think you asked David. Did you ask David?
Yeah. He's nodding yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's up to you and how you would like to proceed, if you would like
Well, I'd like to
to
proceed.
stick with your,
For both.
I would like to instruct the agent to check on 2 additional environmental scientists to be able to provide us with a peer review that fulfills the requirements that have been requested in the first place. For our peer reviewer that has come back with a second review based upon actually following each one of the indices that have been provided for filling out that peer review paperwork.
And that would include for a review under the Wetlands Protection Act, since they asked for that now?
Yep, correct.
I think that's appropriate because they did request it now.
Okay. That's a
Do we
motion?
need a motion for that, or?
I don't think we need a motion.
Yes, I would make that in the form of a motion, David Barnacle.
Public comment?
Say again, David, I didn't hear you.
Who was gonna make
Here
a
with the
motion?
motion.
Make
Okay.
that in the form of a motion,
We need to-
David Barnacle.
Okay, see if there's anybody in the outside
Or
that would
makes
like to
any-
speak to it.
Good evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak on the 53 Hillside Drive continued RDA for the proposed single-family home?
Hearing
Doesn't appear
none.
anyone's on the line.
All right.
Is there anyone
Steve?
in the audience that would like to speak on the RDA for 53 Hillside?
Stephen, want to make a motion?
David already did.
Dave?
You want it?
I need a second.
Repeat your motion, David?
Needs a second.
My motion is to have our agent determine two other environmental scientists to perform a peer review according to the data sheet that she had provided for the first applicant for a peer review of this process.
Stephen Chittister, I
And
second.
it should include the Wetland Protection Act.
Yeah, okay. Stephen?
Stephen Chittister, I second.
Okay. Discussion?
I'm just unclear, I guess. If they are willing to stipulate that this is jurisdictional, we're not specifically saying what 100% it's jurisdictional under, and then they have to bring us a notice of intent with engineered plans that lay out exactly where the wetland lines are and what's jurisdictional. If that is the case, then we could, if we disagree with what their wetland scientists come back as the jurisdictional area on their plan, we could then ask for a peer review, but we will allow them to take the next step in the process. So I guess I don't understand why we need to have a peer review at this point if they're willing to stipulate and ask for us to determine that this is jurisdictional, both under the Sturbridge bylaw and the Wetland Protection Act.
They're not asking if it's, they're saying they'll file under our local bylaw. They're saying they're not subject to wetlands, they wouldn't file under Wetlands Protection Act, am I correct? Yeah, so you,
That's the problem.
Oh, well, if they're, okay, so you're not stipulating the Wetland Protection Act, you're only filing under the, well, then I guess the variables haven't changed to me.
Excuse me, we need
Okay.
clarification.
So to clarify, I think what we're saying is that if these areas were deemed isolated land subject to flooding under the local bylaw, you would design a project that complies with that. So what you've got before you fully complies with that. So essentially asking for approval of the specific plans that were provided as part of this RDA application. So for instance, I think Peter can provide the details, but for instance, the driveway will fill 3 areas.
you need to speak in the mic.
I'm sorry. Let me yield my.
So it's essentially, can you bring up the plan first, quickly? This may help. So essentially what happens is there's a number of ponding areas.
Oh, no, there's 41.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's I think there's 3 or 4 that are proposed to be filled for the proposed driveway. And to mitigate for that, the design engineer has elevated the cross culvert. So what the cross culvert elevation does is provides a ponding area which provides twice the volume of land subject to flooding.
I don't know that the details of the plan are relevant for the discussion.
Well, I think it's critical because we're demonstrating, these are the areas we determine that, based upon the regulations, we don't feel that they're jurisdictional. So that's what we presented to you. As a way to sidestep the issue, what we're saying is, let's assume these are isolated land subject to jurisdiction. Let's assume that for the sake of this argument. So what has been proposed is to raise that cross culvert, and there's been calculations provided that indicate that for every square foot of cubic foot of fill of these isolated areas, we're providing twice that as mitigation. So if there's 100 cubic feet of fill required for this driveway, there's 200 cubic feet of compensatory flood storage based upon that elevated culvert. The other thing as well is the property owner's got a 30-acre site. This is all he wants to do. He wants to keep the area forested. He's just looking for a driveway to be able to construct his house. So he has no intention of clear-cutting the property, is what, some people had alleged that. So if the commission wants to issue a determination that this project is what the commission's approving under a negative determination, that's all the property owner's looking for. So we can sidestep the whole jurisdictional issue if the commission will choose to simply approve the project.
I haven't felt this lost in months.
Well, that's why we need a peer review.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
I think.
how about if I revise my motion and delete the words including the Wetland Protection Act? Just do what we were going to do in the first place and get the peer reviewer out there in the thing so that we can have some vision about what the flora and fauna look like when it's not covered with a foot of snow, when it's not covered with ice. I think that is the appropriate way to go.
All right, do I have a motion to close this
We
public
had a
hearing?
motion
Not
on the-
close.
What?
I had
No.
a motion and a second, I just don't have
This was the discussion
This is the
on the
discussion
motion
for
that's
the motion.
on the.
Yeah.
But David wanted to revise his motion to
David?
only.
Yes.
Well, they're asking for it under the Wetlands Protection Act too, so there needs to be something.
Well, you said that. David, you want to repeat your motion one more time?
Yes, my motion would be for us to have our agent send out an application to 2 more environmental professional teams to come and review the process for us. It does not include the Wetland Protection Act. I want them to follow the systematic questioning that was included in the original proposal that Rebecca sent out to the other 3 people.
Do I have a second?
Just some discussion.
even mean?
Can we,
Well, we'll have the second and then,
Stephen Chittister, a second?
okay, go ahead.
So David, is there a reason for not including the Wetland Protection Act in this?
Yes, because if we include the Wetland Protection Act, we'll be here all night discussing it with the attorney and the other engineer. I think that what we need to have is an outside source take a look at this and say, hey, this is right and this is wrong, and let us know.
Okay,
Okay. Second.
it's seconded, yep.
Any further discussion? Becky?
I would just say that they did ask you to look at this under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yes.
So you need to make some motion in regards to that. And if someone's already looking at this, it's advisable. I mean, I already changed the RFP I sent out was because they already asked for that to be included. I think that it's advisable, because, and not saying there's anything wrong with the plan, I'm not questioning their plan, but there's things like, the use of LiDAR versus actual having a land surveyor, go out and shoot grades and things like that, things that someone might look at, that it's important to understand, and not saying this is relevant to, this is necessarily, jurisdictional under the Wetlands Protection Act, but I think that additional information is going to help you make that determination to know that you're adequately reviewing this and having the information that you need. I would suggest keeping that in there.
Okay. Thank you, Becky. David, are you willing to revise it back to your original motion?
Sure.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that the discussion will remain within the Conservation Commission.
What does that mean?
Once they move to this point, it's meant that the board discusses.
Right.
At this time.
Correct.
So I second the motion that includes the evaluation of under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Discussion?
Thank you, Stephen.
Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor?
Eric Gaspar abstain.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
Roy, you have to abstain, but you can state that.
Can I,
I would state that, your name and you're abstaining.
Roy Bishop abstain.
All right. So that's where we're going, gentlemen.
We need a
Continuation.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We'd like to, right, we need a continuation to the next meeting, so that way they can request the additional proposals.
Mr. Rowley?
Yes.
You willing to continue until the next meeting?
Yes. I request that.
All right, the next meeting is February 15th.
Thank you. Thank you.
We should vote on that.
Yeah,
Yes.
vote to,
Make a motion to continue to the 15th of February. Eric Gaspar.
Stephen Chittister, a second.
Discussion? Any discussion? All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Roy Bishop abstain.
Ed Goodwin in favor. All right. Becky, we are now at
who's next?
650 and 680, Route 15. Continued notice of intent, proposed development of a nursery and tree farm to include a perennial stream crossing, DEP file number 300-1092.
Good evening, Chris McClure, McClure Engineering. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, and I think he is on the line, or if you needed any input from him, but I guess I could make this really simple. I'm looking for the same result as just happened in the previous meeting. We're looking for a continuance. There has been a change of direction on this project. The original applicant, the Organic Nursery, they've withdrawn from the purchase of the property, and due to a number of reasons, and the applicant has spent tens of thousands of dollars so far on looking to obtain access to this property, and he wants to continue to pursue that. We have discussed changing the area to access to the north, so we're not going through those additional wetland resource areas, so it'll just be the stream crossing. That's what we're looking for tonight, is to continue this till we can get a redirection on that, the new direction of the project. And, but the intent is still to access the property by constructing a stream crossing across Lead Mine Brook.
All right.
Right, so this project has been continued since June 1st. That's the last continuation we had. As a reminder, there was 2 peer reviews done on this, as well as DEP comments and staff comments that were requested to be answered so we could move forward. You've given multiple continuations. The last 2 times we had continuations, you did say that you would not grant any more continuations. The applicant did come to our November 16th meeting and asked for the continuation to January 27th. The commission was looking for responses. I received an email at 2 o'clock today. No information. There has been nothing received about this. An email, kind of what Chris summarized here, that he's, this person has walked away. They still want to access the back. They want to change their project, etc. It sounds like it's morphed into a whole new project at this time. The concerns at the last public hearing were that you were looking for the responses to the things that had been asked, and that you weren't interested in giving any continuations unless there was substantial information that was brought forward. So that's a summary of that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a suggestion.
Go ahead.
My suggestion is I'd like to make a motion that we cancel, I've got it here somewhere, 650 and 590
680.
Route 15.
680, 15, yeah.
I'm sorry, Route 15. Anyway, DEP file number 300 11092.
1092.
1092.
Well, that's good reading, David. And 1092.
So, I don't know if I can.
I need a
finish.
second.
Oh, I would.
We're still in open public hearing, so we can't.
Yeah,
know that.
we gotta wait for that, Dave. So, yeah, I kind of feel like at this point that, the application should be withdrawn or denied for lack of information. If there's a new project that he wants to pursue, which is a stream crossing, he can come back with that because we keep continuing this. And it seems, it's been continued completely almost for a year now since he originally filed, I believe. Things like a butter notifications, all of those things really need to be done as this is morphing into something different. I would recommend withdrawing it, or unfortunately, if it's not withdrawn, I would say it's denied for lack of information at this point, and he can start fresh. There's a lot of information that he has that he can use towards that new application, I would say.
So if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yep, go
The
ahead.
ramifications for either of those, obviously, answering for the, talking for the applicant, and he is on the line. Part of that is what financial loss is realized when we choose one or the other. The information that was requested, if the project has more, where we're not looking to access the southern portion of the site rather than northern portion of the site, where we only have a stream crossing, and the issues related to additional information were for those the additional wetland crossings. If they weren't in play and we were just looking to access the site with a stream crossing, it really hasn't changed substantially. It's actually been reduced in scope. So the information that we provided to date is actually relevant. And again, what are the pluses and minuses from the applicant's perspective?
Okay.
I just do want to say that the additional information was pertained to the crossing and work in Riverfront too. It wasn't just for the back portions. It was pretty much for everything, so.
And in that period of time, we received nothing. Nothing. We asked for why the access from the road behind wasn't satisfactory, and we wanted background on ownership as a simple part of what you were doing, and we didn't receive anything. Nothing. Not a thing. And you have everything you've done, and you can use whatever you've done, but I think you should come back. I think we're at a point where we should close this project out. I don't know how the rest of you feel. Stephen?
Yeah, based on our previous, that's the decision we made at the last meeting, so. I guess he's asking what the implications are of one versus the other. We deny the application or they withdraw it.
Yeah.
Is there any?
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
We'll go with the one that if you withdraw. David, do you have any idea? Just to
Yeah, we can close the public hearing without prejudice.
Then you can come back.
And he can use all the materials that he's already
Yes.
got.
I just look at it from the standpoint, I certainly have empathy for your situation that the project isn't going forward. However, we're asked to kind of continue a notice of intent on a project that we know isn't going to happen. So we're going to be starting from scratch regardless. And I just don't know that it's an appropriate use of this DEP file and this conversation that we've been having here for an unknown that we don't really know what the variables are. It just doesn't seem appropriate to me.
Right.
So, I think that going in David's direction, that you guys withdraw. I don't know that there would be any prejudice or problem if we denied it for lack of information, but if you withdraw it, it certainly makes it easier.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents.
Through the chair, could I defer to the applicant who's in the audience right now for his input prior to any decision?
Yeah, if it's a decision. If it's a sales pitch, I mean, we've gone to that point. Just a decision from him would be fine, which is in his, whatever the decision in his best interest is.
Okay.
To withdraw or
He's
to.
right up there.
I don't know if he heard you, Chris.
Mark, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, this project at this point is reduced down to just the stream crossing. None of the other wetlands would be impacted. I think it's certainly with precedence that projects before this commission have been reduced in scope, have been required to be reduced. So I don't see why a continuation would somehow upset a balance. This is the main focus of this, has always been the crossing of Lead Mine Brook. It remains the same. It shouldn't affect our DEP filing. It shouldn't really affect anything unless there's some public good that's served by making us start all over again, pay additional fees to the town, and start from scratch. I think there's some significant work that's been done. Granted, the peer review will largely be irrelevant because it included primarily areas that are not included in the scope now. But there are areas that are included that keeps this, I think, an active file. I'm not happy about losing a client, to be honest with you. I don't have another one there, but I still need the same access to the property, and that's really where I think we're going with this. Nothing's really changed other than we've reduced the scope.
Well, you really haven't reduced the scope, you haven't presented any revised plans or anything, I guess. I mean, you're suggesting that you will, but you have not revised anything to date.
I'm sorry?
So the application hasn't been updated?
Correct, there's no information that's been
No
received. And
They're
just, sorry, Roy, this is one that you have to abstain from because it started prior to your being on the board. I just think that it would, especially because it's gone on for a year and it's morphed, there was a different use here, there's a whole slew of different things that at this point in time that withdrawal
The use remains
would be.
exactly the same, a crossing of a perennial stream. It's exactly the same use.
No, it's proposed development of a nursery and tree farm.
Right.
I'd like a motion to close the public hearing. This is gone.
So moved.
Stephen Chittister, a second.
Okay.
Let's go to the audience.
Discussion. Go ahead.
Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak on the 650 and 680 Route 15 continued notice of intent for a proposed development of a nursery and tree farm? No, there's no one on the.
All right.
Anyone in the audience?
Anyone in
Close
the
the public
audience that would
hearing.
like to speak?
Eric, same motion?
Yeah, same motion to close the public hearing.
Stephen Chittister, a second.
Discussion? David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Well, they already closed the hearing.
We
I think
close
he's
the
in
hearing.
favor of closing the hearing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess that vote didn't count. Yes, I would like to propose that we close the public hearing, I'm sorry, that we, the hell are we gonna call it? File number 300, 1092 should be, I don't know, Becky, how do you say filed away?
Through the chair, we didn't vote yet on the closing the public hearing.
Okay,
We need to
yep.
do that.
All in favor of
That's what I thought.
closing the public hearing?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Okay, go ahead.
As no new information has been submitted, then we recommend that the project file, DEP file number,
300-1092.
I'll read it correctly this time, 300-1092 be closed.
It's denied pursuant to the Wetlands Protection Act and the Sturbridge Wetland Bylaw for lack of
Pursuant, et cetera.
information.
Lack of information.
I'll second that motion.
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Dave Goodwin in favor.
Roy, for the record, will you just state that you'll abstain?
Abstain. So that's- Thanks for coming in. Look forward to seeing you back at some future time.
Yep, once things thaw out, we'll be.
Yeah. We are now to 150 Charlton Road, Becky. Continued NOI, development of a commercial building, truck parking and supported infrastructure, DEP file number 300-1115.
Aye. All right, so we do have the applicant on go-to meeting, and we do have Dave Feist from CMG, our peer reviewer here. Since the last meeting, let me just get to
You
my,
can come up so you have the microphone.
yeah, so this was, project was continued at the last hearing to allow for the peer review to be completed. Since that time, we did receive the peer review report. As a reminder, he was reviewing this for compliance with stormwater standards, as well as providing input on riverfront impact calculations for that aspect of our review. I did provide the report to you for you to be able to take a look at. There was about 70 so comments in that. Since the report was received, we did provide that to the applicant and his project team. They did have a meeting with our peer reviewer to go over those comments and did submit a response earlier this week for everybody. That has not been provided to the board because we did not receive it in advance enough time to review before the meeting. This public hearing is to kind of allow our peer reviewer to go over his findings if the board has any questions. Now that they've already worked to revise the plans, you know, I've provided them back to our peer reviewer for him to look at to see that they've addressed those comments. I just want to add in here that we, when we set up our peer review here, we did not include a separate meeting with the applicant's project team, his engineers. They did request that. Therefore, in order to finish our review, it appears that we're going to need additional funds because we still have, he needs to review the revised scope, which was to be included, a site visit with the board when we're ready to go out there. And I forget, maybe there was something else on there, but.
Yeah, just any additional meetings if necessary.
Okay, yeah. So, I just want to say that because that meeting wasn't something that we asked for or add in, so,
Well, when they asked for it, did you tell them it was gonna cost them money?
I wasn't part of that process. They asked directly, so,
Oh, they did.
And no worries if there's, like I said,
Yeah,
it was only
okay.
for an hour, so.
Yeah.
yeah.
It was
yeah.
helpful, I
So,
think, to the applicant's engineer.
yeah, I'm only mentioning it because we've had this happen on other peer reviews where it came up that we were in a position where we just didn't end up with funds, and I just don't want that to happen at the end and there be a concern. So I just want to mention that now, so. But I'll let Dave go through his report. I'm sure, Commissioners, you read my notes. There's still some questions in regards to alternative analysis in riverfront area that I understand that Mr. Kravosky, who also is their representative, will be working to address those comments. I would anticipate that, for the next meeting, we'll get a report back from CMG in that Mr. Kravosky will reply to those comments that we've had to answer those for us as we're evaluating that, and that we can go over at the next meeting. And I'd probably recommend, especially with all the snow that we're getting, that after we get CMG's comments back and we get Mr. Kowalski's comments, which I think are important because of the riverfront area alteration, then we do a site visit to go out there and look at it. And then, what they're proposing for mitigation or whatnot, things like that. So that's all that I have to say. Sorry. We'll let Dave summarize that for you.
Okay, good evening. My name's David Feist with CMG Engineering. I'm the project peer review consultant. We reviewed the plans prepared by Summit Engineering, as well as the drainage report, as well as the notice of intent submittal by EBT consultants, Glenn Kravosky. With that, I'm not going to go through every single comment. We had 70. The first, general engineering stormwater management design comments, mostly technical clarifications that the engineer needs to put together that were either, discrepancies on the plans or missing information. So I'll try to point out some of the high points and then answer any questions you might have. I guess I'll point you to start with item number 22, comment 22. We walked the site with Rebecca before we did our peer review. We took a day, we was out there. It had just rained probably over the weekend before. One of the things that was interesting when we were out there, we did notice there's an isolated wetland towards the front of the property, that there's actually running water out of that area across the site where the proposed stormwater basin was proposed. So with that, obviously, that's sort of a natural drainage pathway that, again, probably needs to be maintained, so I just point that out. And I do believe the applicant will be addressing that with their design revisions. But that was one of the things we noticed, that could have caused issues with the proposed stormwater basin. So then if we go to now item 24 and 25, in the initial review of the plans too, they had, none of the test pit locations were shown on the plans.
Yeah.
So that was an important thing, because that relates to the design of all the infiltration structures. So that's an important item that was not included in the submission. So again, that's something that they'll have to provide on the revised plans. Item number 26, the other important point with the drainage design, was they had assumed, again, the majority of the soils are type C, which are not, they ranges from A to D, A being the best, D being the worst. But they were using like a type B soil for their infiltration rates. So we recommended that they use the infiltration for type C soils, because based on the information they did provide, groundwater was only about 2 feet below the surface, and they're not very permeable soils. So in our meeting with Peter Lavoie of Summit, they did indicate that's something that they would address with their revised submission. And again, with that, there's several other comments, again, related to some of the technicalities of the drainage design. Jumping ahead to sort of stormwater standard number 5, item 38. In the report, originally, they had a statement that was sort of confusing on whether or not the site was a LUPL, land use for high potential pollutant load. In our opinion, the site is a land use high potential pollutant load, and the stormwater design has to meet that standard, because will be storing vehicles, that they tow, similar to how they, what they do now at their current site. Again, it is something the applicant's engineer indicated in our meeting they will address that and add some of the necessary, because their design presented in their initial plans didn't meet that standard, and they didn't note that, I think, in the stormwater checklist. So that's just an important item, because, again, it makes a difference between the level of treatment as well as how much water they treat, where they're proposing underground recharge. And then again, there's a number of just technical comments related to the long-term operation maintenance plan and the plans. I think the most important part on this site, I guess I'll jump to item 59, is with the riverfront regulation review. I think that's probably of particular concern to the commission, given the river that runs through the site. Again, I think it was adequately delineated, but some of the issues on the plans, again, some discrepancies. Some of the plans did not label the 100-foot and 200-foot riparian zones correctly. There was an alternatives analysis narrative included in the report, if you read it. However, if you looked at the figures, some of them didn't show the riverfront area, and there was really no way to compare the different options that they proposed. They did provide some, information on the, how much area was being disturbed, how much was being restored, but there wasn't in their sketch plans did not adequately really, I think, describe what they had looked at. I think that's sort of important in looking at, what they're proposing to disturb. Main disturbance is the edge of their parking area and where they're putting their stormwater structures. And let's see, and that was one of the big things I think from the applicant's presentation. I know wasn't here for the other meeting, but I think that's something important the commission should look at. Because one of the recommendations we had, an alternative that they did not look at, was the potential of using mostly underground chambers under the parking lot instead of doing the stormwater basin in the riverfront in the outer riparian area. And with that, the applicant's engineer did say they would be looking at that with their revised submission. And again, this ties back to earlier we mentioned when we did the site walk, there was a surface water, drainage pattern that went through where the stormwater basin was going. So by looking at that option, that might help solve two issues. One, less disturbance in the riverfront, as well as making their drainage design better for the project. And I'd be happy to answer if there's any specific questions you guys might have. I'd be happy to answer.
Great. Now they have this report.
Yes, yep, so they've been provided this report, they've actually worked to address it. I haven't gone through it, because like I said, it just came this week, but they did move their stormwater structures out of the portion of the riverfront area, and they'll be underneath parking. I didn't really look at it that well. They do still have parking within riverfront area, and I think the structures might be underneath the parking in riverfront area versus completely out of riverfront area. So there's still impacts to riverfront area. And just, it's important to note too that, they need to look at addressing riverfront area under the state act and under the local bylaw for us, because we do have some additional provisions for riverfront area, and they really need to articulate that for us. And especially with what, Dave had mentioned about the figures, we really need to see a very thorough alternative analysis for still having some impact within riverfront area there. One thing I was happy to see, because that was a question I had too about the land use of the high pollutant load, especially because this is a towing facility that does bring disabled vehicles that have been in accidents. One of the things that I had been, met with this applicant many years ago about the current site they're using, they had told me that they put down like extra protections underneath these vehicles when they come in. That way, leaking gas, oil, it's beyond the normal amount that you'd see at a site. Even for like a truck stop maybe, where you have spills from, fueling and things like this. These vehicles will be leaking this stuff. It really seems that it's probably necessary, and I don't know if there are extra things that can be done, like, to make sure that the system that's there can handle these extra pollutants. If it's a practice that they do put these things underneath there, if that's something, then, that would be good, but that really should also be included in an O&M plan, I think.
Agreed. And I know we just actually, there's another site we're reviewing in Holliston. Similarly, if I'm sure that they must have like a spill response plan of some sort related to those practices, that if they can provide that, for this site too, would be, I think it's actually probably required under the LUPL standards, but
Yeah.
definitely something the commission should request.
Yeah.
Now this is towing, but it's trucking, right?
Well, they have truck vehicles that they tow. They're not they're not trucking.
Are they going to be
in-
bringing in cars, or are they going to be bringing in
Oh, no, they're not bringing in like cars from like the thing in
from the Mass
Spencer.
Pike or whatever? This is towing trucks.
No, they
Towing
tow all sorts
anything.
of vehicles. They do the surrounding area, do the Mass Pike. Truck breaks down on the Mass Pike, they tow that.
So it's
Car.
a wrecker service?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a record service, and it
Oh, Jeremy's on there.
Maybe the applicant wants to
Do you want to ask him about his?
well, I'm just asking, what's the profile? Are we going to be looking at,
Yeah.
containers of fertilizers in the back of trucks that are being towed in there, or what?
Well, whatever it has as its cargo, I guess, right? I don't know if there's, what's that, an embargo or something?
Saw
Like
that
a thing.
movie,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Which
I
one?
forgot about that. So, yeah, I mean, I had some other comments. I don't want to read the whole thing
Yeah,
here.
okay.
I would, the applicant's on here, his project team, everyone's been provided this detailed agenda. I'd like to see them address the comments in here that I have as well, especially with the riverfront area. I think that's really what's going to be key. I'm really happy to see, and thank you, Jeremy, for working with your team to get that, looking at doing the infiltration underground. That really does minimize the disturbance within riverfront area. I know that part of what was sent to me today was they, have some plans they want to show you. I had asked, how much parking do you need? Where do you, how many vehicles are you storing? Things like that. A little bit more about their use of the area and why, because you have to show that you don't have alternatives. So maybe, why do you need all that parking? Why do we have to use riverfront area? So I know that they're aware of that and that their team will be working on that, so.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am on the call.
Oh, I'm Madam Chair?
Questions you have.
Yeah, no, we saw you on there, Jeremy, thank you. Yeah, we saw when you put your mic on. We didn't know if you had anything you wanted to comment, but thank you for the Madam
Yes.
Chair, I just,
Well, my dad taught me from a young age. But if you or the committee have any questions, I'd like to answer them for you. But we do have strict protocol on spill. I do want to say that, and I will put that in writing. That's simple. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on.
Okay.
And Glenn Kowalski is also online.
oh, the public line.
And is also online from Summit.
Glenn, are you on the public
That's all.
line? We didn't quite hear what you just said, but.
Yes, I'm online. I'm on a phone line. I had another meeting and I came in just on the phone.
Oh, good.
So,
Oh, good.
so Dave, I'll provide, I don't know if I gave you a copy of the detailed agenda, or maybe it was in the link, but I'll provide that. And then I know I gave you the revised materials. I'll have to look back. I'm writing myself a note because I think I forgot to send you what the other plans that I received today. I don't remember if I did that, so.
Thank you. Just for the chairman, if I could, just briefly, because this is just informal. We'll be asking.
Madam Chair is in charge.
Oh, Madam Rebecca, please. I'm sorry. But I
Oh, Jeremy, can you just shut your mic off? We're getting some feedback from you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Go ahead. Glenn.
very briefly, because we'll be discussing it in more detail once the peer reviewer reviews the revised plans with alternative analysis, numbers, corrections, my work, the restoration of the river, recreating that, taking that crossing out, looking at other aspects of minimizing it, and keeping to your replication of 2-to-1 as close as possible. Hard to make more riverfront, but we can obviously restore areas of riverfront, and that's what we're looking at. There was a question about even the address of the next door neighbor to the west. We corrected those things and got a new letter giving us permission to remove the old tailing piles from 88 from the original building of the structure adjacent to us in the west. And we have one more aspect that we'll be adding into the plan that has to do with a sediment deposition. All in all, working with now Steve Brissett, Mr. Andrew Baum has left the company, you might be aware, so we're working with Steve on this out of Summit. And I believe they, along with Peter Lavoie, has put together a good response, a very good response, and I guess you're going to be the ones in a peer reviewer to say that that is what I'm saying, and we'll be waiting for that next peer review comment. That's all.
All right.
So I would recommend at this point that we do a continuation to the next meeting, and we can review those materials for that meeting.
Right.
And we request that continuance. I appreciate it.
You want to see if there's anybody on the outside line besides?
Is there anyone besides Glenn Kravosky on the on the public line that would like to speak on the continued notice of intent for 150 Charlton Road?
Would like to make a motion to accept.
Before we do that, don't you want the commission to have a chance to ask questions?
Sure. Go ahead. I thought we were.
Oh, Dave
has a question.
David, you have a question?
Yes, but I'm gonna ask it of Madam Chairman. Oh, no. For the peer reviewer, I notice in most gas stations that they have a concrete pad in numerous places around the gas pumps that have deep striations in them. So I assume that that's some kind of a state or federal law that has something to do with protecting against spills. And I haven't seen any of that type of thing proposed for this project on Route 20. Is there a reason for that?
From my understanding, because we do some gas station work as well, it's called a sort of a positive limiting barrier, I believe. And that's basically under the canopy. So if there is a spill, it helps just, again, disperse it a little more so it can be cleaned up and prevented from running towards the paved areas. Again, it's not something that's typically seen in stormwater drainage design. And under the DEP stormwater standards for the LUPL, the really main two requirements are the treatment of the 1-inch runoff, 44% pre-treatment, which can be achieved with deep sump catch basins with hoods to provide oil water separation, and then also an offline oil water separator to help, again, additionally separate oil before it gets to the recharge system. And most of the time, the idea is to provide an oil water separator big enough to contain the largest potential spill that they might have on the project. So usually they don't use those, those aren't typically used for this type of application.
Okay, thank you. I mean, the concern that all of us have is that this project is going to be within 20 feet of a river.
Well, it's not, it's,
I'm sorry, 200 feet.
Yeah.
Not 20.
yeah, and it's close to an isolated wetland and a bordering vegetated wetland. It's closer to the vegetated wetland. I think it's within
Yeah.
50 feet of both the isolated and the vegetated, which obviously, you know, end up in that river area, so. Yeah, I think there, as Dave's saying, there's definitely extra concerns with the use, and if there's other things they can put in place to prevent it from, you know, what are those options, I guess, so.
Yeah, like move it across the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Eric.
My only question is from your interactions with the applicant's agent, are there any bones of contention between the two of you that are in your report here that we should be aware of as, because I know they're working through, but were there any disagreements?
Basically, not that I'm aware of. Again, we just met to basically, he just had a few questions on clarifying some issues.
Okay.
But other than that, I believe that
Okay.
we're on the same page.
So, all right.
See, the way you asked that question is, was there anything that you might have disagreed upon in any manner?
I only care about the major bones of
Yeah,
contention.
not to my knowledge.
The
That's
little
how you
quibbles.
find out about the major.
There you go, yeah.
I didn't have any specific questions, but I just wanted to thank you for the
Yeah.
incredibly thorough peer review. You really did a great job, and I appreciate that. It
Oh,
was,
you're welcome.
yep.
Thank you.
I think we all do.
Is there any EPA restrictions, guidance, guidelines, either at the state or federal, that we should be aware of? I mean, some of the questions that are coming up, the designs of the concrete pad and so forth, are there anything that we should be knowledgeable on that's not included in your report?
No, mostly everything is regulated under the Massachusetts DEP stormwater management standards related to the use and the stormwater drainage. The only thing federally would be the NIPD's, because they're disturbing, I think, greater than an acre. They'll need to have a NIPD's construction general permit, I think, prior to construction, which again is usually dealt with, you know, following approval of the project
Okay.
before construction.
Okay, and so do we get that prior?
Yep, yeah, for a
That-
project
that
like this,
happens- That's the long pole in the tent, right?
yes, we would add that as a condition for a project greater than 1 acre or greater, so.
I'd like to make a motion to continue this hearing until the 15th of February.
Do I have a second?
Stephen Chittister, a second?
Any discussion? All in favor, David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Floyd Bishop in favor?
Dwight in favor. All right. Good Lord.
Thank you, Commission. Thank you, us.
Are they granting us to continue?
Glenn, does that continuation work for you?
Oh, yes. The engineers have, as we have stated, have submitted their documents. We'll just be waiting for that peer review, and then any comments back, once we receive additional comments, if there are any additional, they'll be working to address them before well, we would like to address them 7 days before the meeting, so that if there are any, that we can supply them to you. But I have one that I'm going to be adding on to the plan that I just briefly mentioned earlier, about just a little bit more riverfront restoration that can be added into the project. We'll
Okay.
get that done in the next couple of days.
All right, we'll continue to 2:15 then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank.
Dave, thanks
very
for
much.
coming in. I know you had to wait a little while,
Yep, oh,
but
that's okay. Nope, thank you very much.
I'll be in touch tomorrow. I'll get that stuff to you.
Oh, yeah.
We are now on to 180 Breakneck Road and 16 Cross Street. We have an ANRAD, continued proposed equine center, DEP file number 300-1120.
All right, so this is a continuation for resource area approval for 2 parcels totaling 298.5 acres. The INRAD's been continued multiple times since October 19th, as the project team requested time before you voted on the INRAD. The discussion at that time was to request a peer review for this project. Right, that's what the recommendation was too. Yeah, there was some additional discussion about resource areas that they weren't asking for approval. We recommended as if there was a project there, those should be included. So there was a discussion about that. So at this point in time, you know, they came back, I think it was beginning of December, and it was agreed upon to continue to this time. To date, I have not received any information. We send out the agenda with the detailed agenda and a reminder with the go-to meeting information a few days in advance of the meeting. I have not been contacted by them. It doesn't appear that we have anyone on here for this. I don't think we have anyone on the public line either, in case they accidentally called in that way. Was there anyone on the public line? Well, let's see. So, I mean, no new information has been received. They're not here to discuss this or give a continuation. I guess my recommendation would be that you can vote that you would need the additional information, and nobody is here. And then you, I guess, as no continuation is given or agreement upon that, then you could vote to deny the project. There's no continuation, no one here to give you a continuation.
Well, we told them, well, we made it perfectly clear to them at the last meeting that we, you know, they needed to give
Right,
us
and I'm-
information to proceed, or we were going to close the project out.
Yeah, I think it's time to move on.
Yep.
Time to move on.
Time to move on.
Any discussion from anybody? I don't,
Not unless you want a motion.
Need to close it first.
oh, we gotta,
Anyone on the public
Yeah,
line that would like
do
to
the public.
speak on the ANRAD for 180 Breakneck Road and 16 Cross Street?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Stephen Chittister, I second it.
discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Roy Bishop in favor?
Ed Goodwin in favor.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we close, I'm sorry, that we cancel or eliminate the file number 300-1120 as a result of a lack of information.
I would just recommend, you haven't asked for additional information to date because they asked you to wait. Procedurally, I think you need to ask for that, so I would recommend that you vote to request additional information in the form of a peer review. And then there's no one here to confirm that. Then I think the next step, because they're not here, you don't have anyone to confirm that, you would vote to deny it and deny it for lack of information. I guess.
Okay,
I'm
Madam
not-
Chairman has made a motion. All in favor?
What? I disagree. I think we should just go ahead and close it.
Yeah, I don't know that, I mean, I get what you're saying, Becky, but I don't.
7-day new information, so the last meeting, they had to bring us information, they didn't bring us any information.
They didn't bring it.
I think that they'd be within their legal right to just, they didn't provide anything, so.
This is not a situation I've ever been in, and they're not here, so I don't know.
I would tend to, I think that because we specifically requested information we requested them to bring us information at the next hearing.
Yeah.
We didn't say that the peer review was the next step, but I think because we asked for that and we didn't get any, then that would be the grounds for
Okay.
for
Yeah,
closing.
their lack of showing up, I mean, isn't that enough? I mean, I think we
Not
just,
even a phone call.
right, we just
Call them,
deny
right?
the project and, you know.
Get on with
move
life.
So I second David's motion.
Right? So, any further discussion, or do we just vote? All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Roy Bishop in favor?
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, we are now on wetland decisions. 6 Apple Hill Road.
All right, so, we've had a few discussions. The attorney here, so you can see it looks like it's on here twice, number 10 and 11. We had, orders of conditions here, DP file number 300-1033. They received, orders of conditions, and then they received an amended orders of conditions. Due to electronic filing that this lawyer uses, they're asking us to do two separate certificates of compliance. With that said, this is only a partial. There was 2 addresses for this. This was a construction of a single-family house on 11 McGilpin. And they had to, they got an easement on 6 Apple Hill Road for the water and sewer line to get back there. So 6 Apple Hill Road is actually, this project has been completed for a few years now. From what I can tell, they never closed anything out. 6 Apple Hill Road is on the market, which triggered the certificate of compliance request. So they would like a partial to close out the regular orders of conditions, DEP file number 300-1033. I think we have this backwards on here. The original applicant permit holder was Peter Ayat. Okay, that's one request. I would recommend that we do issue that partial COC to release just the 6 Apple Hill Road from that. I've gone by there before and have seen that work was done, and it was in a lawn, the lawn was restored, so I don't have any concerns with that.
All right, well, I'd like to make a motion that we issue a partial certificate of compliance for DEP file 300-1033 at 6 Apple Hill Road.
Stephen Chittister, I second.
Oh, sorry, with that said, there's perpetual conditions 51 and 52, I'm sorry.
With the agent's notes on the perpetual conditions.
I second that motion.
Can we just, sorry, also for procedure, can we just also say for the original order of conditions, because otherwise the motions will be identical?
Oh, I was gonna say for the amended one on the next.
Oh, okay.
But I can do original, it's up to you.
That's fine. Just want to differentiate if it's you making the motion again.
Stephen Chittister, I second that motion.
Well, actually, 10 is the amended.
11's the amended, right?
It's back.
Well, it's just the names are backwards.
Okay,
Yeah,
we'll leave it that way
yeah, we'll
then.
leave it that way, yep. So, all right, so now we are on to number 11, same thing.
We need to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just trying to make up some time. I'm just kidding.
All right, Ed, this is your part.
This is my part where I say,
All in favor.
all in favor.
David Barnacle opposed.
Roy Bishop in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Ed Goodwin opposed.
3,
Yep, still passes.
okay.
Okay, number 11, 6 Apple Hill Road, request for a partial certificate of compliance for amended orders of conditions, DEP file number 300-1033.
So we have the same vote.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion for a partial certificate of compliance for the amended OOC for DEP file 300-1033 at 6 Apple Hill Road, with the perpetual conditions as noted in the staff recommendations. Boom.
Stephen Chittister,
Right.
second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
David Barnacle opposed.
Stephen Chittister in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Fred Bishop in favor?
Ed Goodwin opposed. We are now on to 336 The Trail.
Okay, so this is a request for certificate of compliance. This is DEP file number 300-1013. This was an order of conditions that was issued for construction of a single-family house, and also the installation of a seasonal dock on Big Alum Pond. Permit was issued in 2018. Property includes bordering vegetated wetland, riverfront area, and buffer zone. We received an as-built plan and engineer's letter of substantial compliance. This project has been closed out for some time. I did do a site visit. I didn't have any noted concerns. Obviously, there's snow cover. This is most of the work associated with the house. This is the house up on the top of the hill. Is outside of the 100-foot buffer. The driveway was in riverfront area. Some work was within 200 feet and some was within the 500-foot buffer that we have. So most of the work is outside. I mean, the site's been closed out for some time. It's been vegetated. I did stop and also look at the vegetation along the bank of Big Alum because there were conditions that they were not to remove any vegetation. There was a concrete piece of concrete along the bank there from a previous use where something was, and that's where they were to put their seasonal dock. They didn't have to do anything along the bank to secure it or whatnot. It was within that concrete, so I didn't have any concerns with that. I mean, I would recommend issuance of a complete certificate of compliance with perpetual conditions, which were 21, 22, 23, 24, 31, and 35 in the orders of conditions. And they need to, you know, remove their silt fence and their sign and the normal things too, which they're not asked to do until they receive a certificate of compliance, so.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the certificate of compliance for DEP file number 300-1013 for 336 The Trail with the perpetual conditions 21, 22, 23, 31, and 35.
Stephen Chittister, second.
Discussion? All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Fred Bishop in favor?
Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, we are on to administrative decisions. Minutes from 1/6/22 to be approved. Do I have a motion?
Silly correction.
What?
There was one little correction. Some spelling error.
David already asked us, there was a change. It was supposed to be solicit. I think spell check changed it to silicate or something weird like that. So Dave caught that and we made that change.
God bless you, Dave.
It's on,
Page 6.
hang on a second, it's on, the 53 Hillside Road. And
Oh, the
it's
discussion?
it's after Gaspar's motion. And what they talk about is, or what was printed by the computer, not by our agent's help, not by our clerk. The printer did this, silicate, twice. And it really should not be silicate.
All right. Motion to approve with that one change? Anyone?
David Barnacle makes a motion to approve the minutes as modified.
Stephen Chittister, a second.
Discussion? All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Fred Bishop in favor?
Ed Goodwin in favor. Okay. Story
On this
land, special land use, Joshua Hyde Library Story Time.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this again. It has happened in the past, and it has had some success.
Stephen Chittister, a second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Roy Bishop in favor?
Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, we are now on old business. Administrative updates, committee updates we did. Any other old business, Becky?
Oh, I'll do that under agent report, yeah.
16.
Mosquito project, Becky, want to do that, new business?
Yeah, yeah. Yep. So we received a notification from Central Mass Mosquito Control Project about work they want to conduct this summer at 17 and 18 Woodlawn Drive. I had gone out there this summer. The property owner, I forget which address it is experiencing some flooding. They have gone out about 10 to 15 years ago and had done some work to alleviate standing water to increase flow again over there. They'd like to go back out and do that. So on the, that's on the Walker Pond side. So what that work would entail is bringing a small piece of equipment out there. I forget what it was they said in the report. And from the upland areas, they would access and kind of recreate that channel again, which has kind of been lost. And then on the other side of the road, the whole stream area has a lot of material that's filled in, and I'm not really sure what exactly the causes of that. There is a stream, and the stream goes across Woodlawn again on the other side, and it's pretty steep on the other side, and it appears, you know, maybe it's these really intense flashy storms we've been getting, more development upstream that's increasing water in that stream. It's really eroding that stream throughout that area, kind of from what you can see from the road. That might be part of the source of that material being deposited. But they'd like to go in the stream channel and kind of clean out that material too, on that side as well. That's what they did in the past too. DPW is they're going to do the work, and DPW will remove those materials. Materials on the Walker Pond side will be deposited within the upland areas of the adjacent property owners. It's been agreed upon, so they don't have to kind of truck that out, I guess. What was I going to say too? Oh, so the reason about cleaning out the material on the stream, not on Walker Pond side in between the roadway, is because when we get these storms, the road is almost the same level there, and it doesn't have the capacity to carry that water. It's flooding, and it's going onto the road, and it's actually going across the road onto the property owner's front lawn, which is actually his septic system as well, and flooding his property. So they're proposing to do this project under their provisions. I think I cited in here, Chapter 252. They're allowed to do these water management projects, which are exempt from the Wetlands Protection Act, and they're required to provide us and some other agencies notification. And once they notify us, we have 30 days to provide them comment if there's anything that we think needs to be included with the project. I definitely think that some BMPs should be added in there, maybe during work or during when, no work to occur during high flow, or within, a few days of recent event or upcoming event, things of that nature, to avoid any inadvertent impacts while they clean that out. I think it's important too to really, understand why these issues are happening down there. But it is a lot of stagnant water on the property owner side that has the concerns. It is all bordering vegetated wetland over there too, so.
Right, that's all true, so just give them some BMPs because they built in a wetland, and there's nothing you can do about it now. Simple as that, and the more the faster that it flows, the bigger the delta that Walker Pond is gonna receive of silt and So tell them to do it when it's dry and do it carefully and be gentle.
The mosquito control is not suggesting any piping onto the road, though, I think.
There's a culvert there.
The culvert
the
that
head
blocks.
wall, yeah.
That
Well,
blocks.
I know, but the culvert being blocked is a blessing for Walker Pond. Because what we would be doing is carrying all of that slush from the other side of the road into Walker Pond.
Right, you're absolutely correct. So instead, it brings it into the people's yards.
And sits there.
Well, that isn't the part that I was gonna focus on.
That's why I say just do it gentle and, it's a political situation that we are not going to win.
Yeah.
Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you, that, just try to encourage them to do it in as dry a time
Yeah,
as
right,
possible, as gently as possible, and, I mean, a lot of, some of this stuff is just outside of our control,
Right.
so.
Exactly. Anything else, Roy?
Do you get any kind of a report back from them? Any kind of this is what we did?
Yeah, that's a good idea, Becky.
Get a report
Ask them
afterwards.
to report back to us.
Well, I'd like notification too
What
when they're gonna
happened and-
start and
Yeah, just
done.
lessons learned, just kind of
Yeah.
Okay.
when they did it.
And if they have any,
Any metrics, I removed 10 tons of silt or,
That always slows them down. That's a good.
10 tons.
Steven, you gotta have one. Everybody else has come up with something.
I'm out of it.
Out of it? Plant some willow trees down along the.
Yeah.
the-
Good idea. Hold on.
Berry bush.
Yeah. Becky?
Then it would attack that poor woman's septic system.
All right,
We need to vote on that though, right?
all in favor?
No.
Or not? It's just-
David Barnacle in favor.
Steven? You in favor?
I don't know.
It was sort of,
What?
I don't know that you have to
It's exempt,
Yeah.
so,
vote, you know.
yeah,
So there's nothing to vote on.
it's nice for them to let us know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
just an update, I guess,
Yeah.
for you.
What else? Are we done?
No.
Yeah, no, just quickly, just agent report. I won't say too much, but just a reminder, you probably
Not
got
the
the.
agent anymore, I am.
Oh, all right.
We're done.
Here, have fun tomorrow.
Can you take that?
I'm leaving right when we close this. You can clean up. Just the MACC conference is coming up. Roy, this is new for you. So it's the Mass Association of Conservation Commission members. The town pays for all you to have a membership as well as staff. They always do, they have their big spring annual conference. They've been doing it virtually since COVID, which means they have more offerings. There's workshops. The MACC offers like a fundamentals training program for commissioners. You get a lot of good information. We do have funds to pay for you to go to that if you're interested. I don't know if
Is it
we
gonna
had
be
Steve
live? Are we gonna
Halterman.
go to Holy Cross or is it
No, it's gonna be virtual.
virtual?
I mean, the nice thing about that is that they, and I don't remember if they've done ones like the fall when they did it over a week. So like there was different times, a lot more offerings for these classes that you couldn't get before, so that's kind of nice, I'll send that to you, Roy. I actually have to look, Steve Halterman was signed up for this year. We again have to renew everyone's membership, so I don't know if we can sub you out for him for the rest of the year if you're interested in going, but, if there's something you want to take, please let us know. We do have funds. Fiscal year changes in July, so, yeah, look into it and let me know. Let us know.
March 1st through 12th.
Okay.
There we go.
is it in Vegas or?
Yeah.
If your computer is Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah,
Take your computer
well, you
to
can put your
Vegas.
screen behind you,
Yeah, you
yeah.
can put
Well,
anything
by
on
the
the
pool and
screen.
the Venetian.
Just so you know, most other people are gonna have like ponds and stuff like that behind them on their screen, but Vegas, that might lighten up the, screen, the monitor there. Just to let you know too, that, I haven't really been using funds for my own training, but I did sign up for University of New Hampshire has some professional workshops, development workshops. There's a couple classes I couldn't get into. They filled up pretty quickly, but I am taking a, and I signed up to do a, get a professional wetland certificate through them. I'm doing a, mapping, a delineation workshop. It's actually over a couple of days, and I have to go do field work up there in May, so I did sign up for that. Why are you looking at me?
I'm not smiling under my mask.
I didn't think so, geez. And then also another, functions and values for wetlands too. So just trying to continue, thank you, my education, so that way, to get a lot more field experience when things come in that.
Why wouldn't you go to UMass?
Because they're not offering anything right now, so it's, that's why you're looking at me that way. I was wondering why, I'm like,
Well, at least we'd have some, everything's central for New
Oh.
Hampshire. You're not gonna get any, you're just gonna get biology, that's it, huh?
well, I think it's gonna be useful. It actually was recommended by some other professionals
Yeah.
to go
Yeah.
through there, so.
Okay,
So-
be interesting.
Right, if they had something, I've looked at UMass, and it's just, there's not always offerings, so it's, I'd like to take advantage of it, especially we haven't been using the training fund that we have, which is for, and just so you're aware, for next year's budget, I did ask for an increase of that, because when it comes down to what we've been asking for, it really only covers like us going to MACC and stuff like that, so
Yeah.
we really need to, because we're taking into consideration 5 board members potentially doing trainings and stuff like that, and staff, I did ask for an increase for next year. So, yeah. That's that. Our tree scavenger hunt, we were gonna put this on the agenda to give out our awards. We actually didn't have, we know that people have been up there. There's been Facebook posts of pictures with the trees, but we haven't received anything
No, people
from
were
anyone.
texting me. They're like, "That's your tree." I said I had nothing to do with it, but.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
so,
glad they did.
yeah, so we have like a thing out there, like a flyer and stuff, and send information out, like we ask people for the kids to find the trees and take pictures and send them in, and we put them in a raffle, and we didn't get any of those this year, so it's a little unfortunate, but, right, I'm glad to hear that people were out there actually looking at them and enjoyed them, but, it seems like we've been kind of having a declining youth participation on that, and maybe there's some ways we can revamp that, do something to make it, more enticing.
More interactive next year.
It is hard because, having a young family and December is a chaotic month, maybe we have to take that into consideration with it too. It is just hard to, get out all the time.
Well, we also had the coronavirus.
Yeah.
And we also had virtually no snow. And in the past, we always had snow between Thanksgiving and Christmas. People got more excited about it.
Yeah.
I also had a few calls this year. People were very upset, which, I don't know if that's happened in the past, but
Well,
A
upset
few.
with what?
they're upset that we allowed people to put, basically, in their opinion, garbage out there, outside, animals to get or something. So I was a little
Okay,
disheartened. I was a little disheartened by that.
Good Lord.
I actually.
Anyway,
People need a hobby.
So.
Yes, do you have a motion to make?
I do.
Oh, before we do that,
Oh, Eric's paper.
no, that's fine. You can review that, we can discuss it, but, on the agenda, it jumped out at me that the site visit was the 8th and the meeting was the 15th. Our meetings are now on Thursday, so the meetings are actually the 17th. So we might want to alert everybody who we continued to, or.
No,
That one is.
this is the one we changed to a Tuesday.
Oh,
Yeah, we had sent out an email a while ago.
I'm double booked then.
Oh.
All right, well, no, I'll change the other one.
Okay.
It's,
Sorry,
I-
yes, this is the only one we're gonna have on a Tuesday. We had to change this one. Someone had a conflict.
Sure, we're not gonna have a town
You can,
administrator. We're not gonna have a town administrator.
What was the
in
chair?
timely fashion, 'cause you're a town-
You guys could have had the meeting without me. I
Oh,
did
no,
present
thank
that
you.
as an option to
No.
Sounds good.
the new agent over here. No. I just want to add too, just about trails. We were kind of talking in the office, like Dave goes to the trail meetings. We know we talked about it before that Tom Chamberlain's going to be leaving. We used to assist with like doing the minutes and things like that, and as, you know, Tom does a lot of stuff, kind of administrative things, and, you know, he's not a staff person, but he does a lot of things for them that I feel that we'll be kind of helping with in the future. We thought maybe it would be useful to, like, you know, if we can, allot some time to go to the meetings and take the minutes and do those things, as maybe we'll be taking on some responsibilities that they might need with not having a staff person kind of in the future. So we were kind of tossing that idea around, just an idea, so you're aware. And then-
Anything, you know, we can either gradually move into it, or we can design it, I don't care. I think it needs to be done. You guys can think about it.
Well, it'd just be very helpful, I think, for them to like administratively pay bills and like get their things on the website and, you know, be more,
Who's paying their bills now?
You know, it's just, they have a lot of grants and things that, you know, we've been helping with the projects, now planning's helping with the grants for the time being and things like that. But, you know, as I've kind of said, and it's not because we have a bunch of free time that we want to do that, but it also, like, it'll help us is with the conservation properties, you know, it's intertwined, and there's a lot of things, I know they have projects coming up that they're interested in doing that will revolve permitting, which, you know, I'll probably have to help with that. You know, we gotta talk about timelines and things like that. So I think it's just kind of necessary. I, you know, think in the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years, the town's added on a lot of conservation properties under your care and custody that, you know, there's, you know, having some extra help to be able to focus on the properties and keep the natural resources, you know, in good condition out there, and, you know, might be advisable down the road, but that's all I'll say. We mentioned earlier, we're working on tree removal policy. We'd like to do that because, you know, really looking at what some other towns do in administrative approval versus actually requiring some type of real filing, et cetera, et cetera. So we're trying to work on that too.
and the two gentlemen that offered to be part of our little working group, I was thinking maybe on a Tuesday evening that we work late, we could maybe get together and start. I have pulled a lot of information for you, and I thought we could start working on it.
Yeah, we could kind of disperse to you in advance, like what we've got, so you can see kind of what other towns do. We are very unique that we have the extra buffer zone that we have to think about too, so it kind of adds a complexity to it, but it's really good to see what other people are doing and how they're approaching tree removal and filing, so.
Right.
I will stop now.
Even it's your time.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second, Eric Gaspar.
All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Ward Bishop in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor.
All right, thanks, Dave.